What's going on, guys? Welcome to your 61st Java tutorial, and this tutorial is probably going to be the last tutorial for now on polymorphism. Swine flu. So in the last couple tutorials I told you guys about the concepts of polymorphism, and I showed you guys how to do some pretty cool stuff with them, but we never really put it into a program, and we never really got to see why this was really useful. So in this program I'm going to show you pretty much the core heart of polymorphism and what you can use it for. So let's go ahead, and in this program I'm going to make a method in each one of these classes that's just going to say, I don't know, I'm going to have like a line for fish that says make a noise. I'm going to have a line for dog that says make a noise, and by line I mean method, and also one for animal as well. So let's go ahead and make the same method in animal, fish, and dog. And I probably should have made an animal that makes a noise besides a fish, but you know, fish don't really make noise, but that's not important. You'll see what this tutorial is about. So let's go ahead and make a method in here for animal, and we'll put public void noise. And since animals don't really make a noise, let's just have something on the screen, because this method is actually never going to be called, but I just want to make a method to show you guys it's not going to be called. So system out print line, gotta learn to type, print line, and we'll say like animals don't make noise. And this is pretty much the point of inheritance and why we have this class right here, because fish and dog are each, since they extend this, they can both overwrite this method right here. So let's go ahead and copy this in the fish one. Let's go ahead and put the same method in here. Again, we don't change the name of it, it's just the noise one, but it's coming from the fish class now. And what kind of noise does a fish make? Put like glurp, slurp. That's what noise I would make if I was a fish, so you know, it's good enough. Dog one should be a little easier. We'll put a method in dog called noise as well, and we'll make this one go rough. Not rust, rough, right like that. So now we have this method called noise in animal, and we also have a method called noise in fish, even though fish don't really make noise, but this fish says glurp slurp, and we have one in dog called noise called rough. So we have this main method in animal, and it gets overwritten when you call it in dog and fish. So now that we have three methods named the same thing, let me show you guys the core heart of polymorphism. One of the main aspects of polymorphism is that if you can put objects into an array like we did last time, but we didn't really do anything with it, we just added them in the array. The cool thing is that you can put objects in an array, and you can loop through that array and call the same method for the objects. The thing is, you can automatically call noise for dog, and when you call noise for dog, rough prints out, and when you call noise for fish, glurp slurp comes out. And if we had a bird and you call noise for bird, it would be chirp chirp. If we had a class called cow and a method called noise, it would do moo. So it's pretty cool in the sense that you can loop through an array of objects and call the same method name, but each method, since it's in a different class, it does something a little different. And this is my virus protection right here, so I will renew that later. Get out of my way. Get. So let me go ahead and show you guys how to do this. Go ahead and make an animal type object, which is actually going to be an array. So go ahead and write animal, and we'll name it the list, and we'll set it equal to new animal 2. And again, the concept, if we have an array of type animal, then not only can we put animal objects in it, but also fish and dog, since they extend animal. And that's one of the concepts I taught you guys before. Now we can actually put it to use into something useful. So now we go ahead and, we need, this is going to be an array of objects, of 2 objects. So actually this is 3, but let's go ahead and make a dog object and a fish object to use it. I can go ahead and change it. Well, it's good. So dog D equals new dog with empty parameters, since it didn't have a constructor or nothing. So fish F equals new fish, no parameters for that either. So now we have an empty array in 2 objects, D for dog and F for fish. So let's go ahead and use those right now. We'll just do this the easy way, the visual way. So at index 0, which is the first element, let's just go ahead and set that equal to D for dog. And at the list, in the index 1, which is the second element, set that equal to F for fish. Now let me get this out of the way. This is annoying. So now we have an array, and we have 2 elements in it. And again, if you watch the last tutorial, you can see that you can populate this array using add method, but this is just a really easy method for demonstration. The next thing I'm going to do is write one of these enhanced for loops. And in case you forgot what an enhanced for loop was, it pretty much is a special loop to loop through an array. So first you put animal, and then you give it a new variable, what's going to use X. It's kind of like the counting variable in for loop. And then you write the array name. So now it's going to loop through the array, the list, and every time it loops, it's going to treat the index as X. So we can do things like this. X, which is the object now, since we put object in the array, so this would be substituted for D, the first loop, and F, the second loop. And then you should be X.noise. And what this is going to do, in essence, it's going to loop through the entire array, and it automatically knows the length of it, so you don't got to worry about counting variables or anything. The first thing it's going to do is say, alright, what's the first element in the array? It's dog. So I'm going to put dog.noise, and I should have rough print out on screen. Alright, done with that. Now next element in the array, it's a fish element. So I'm going to put fish.noise, and the fish noise is glurp slurp. And then I'm done, and that's it. So let me go ahead and run this to all those, and you see rough, glurp, slurp. So that, like I said, is pretty much the core essence of polymorphism, in the sense that you can automatically create an array of objects and loop through that array and call each method with the same name in that object, and you don't have to create a bunch of objects. You don't have to be like D dog, F fish. This is a real quick way if you had like an 100, or excuse me, an 100, why do I keep saying in 100? 100 objects, so you don't have to call 100 lines of code. You can just make this and it loops through. So in the next couple of tutorials, I don't feel like doing any more polymorphism because it's kind of annoying, but I needed to teach you guys what like implements and abstract classes were, so that's why I did this, because in the next tutorials we're going to be getting the GUIs more and some awesome visual stuff. So thank you guys for watching this tutorial. Don't forget to subscribe. The next tutorials are going to be awesome. So again, thank you guys, and I'll see you next time. What is going on, people? Welcome to your 60-second Java tutorial. And in this tutorial we're going to be getting back to what everyone loves most, and that is GUIs. So as you can see, I already created a new class called GUI, and I already went ahead and imported everything, and you should all know what this stuff means from my last tutorials. I just didn't feel like having to type it all again. You guys didn't want to watch me type it anyway, so I went ahead and imported everything we need to import. We'll figure out what these do later, so if you watch my other tutorials you already know what to do. But anyways, go ahead and make a new class called GUI and have it extends JFrame, and I'll leave that up if you guys want to copy, I guess. And what extends mean is it pretty much inherits everything from JFrame. And we're going to be making buttons in this tutorial, and JFrame has some built-in stuff for us to create buttons. And the first thing we're going to need to do is create 2 variables. So go ahead and put private J button, and we'll create 2 buttons. The first one will be a regular one, and then we'll go ahead and create another one, J button, and we'll just make this one a custom one. One of them is just going to be a regular button, and the other one, if we spell private right, it's going to be a button with our own images on it, and I'll show you where to put the images and how to do all that good stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and minimize this, so hopefully you guys got that copied down, because just because it's annoying me. So the first thing we're going to need to do is build a constructor. So go ahead and put public, and just go ahead and put GUI, or whatever you name your class right here. And we need to build a constructor because whenever we create an object from this class, we want this window to automatically pop up. We don't want to have to call a method for it to pop up. So go ahead and add no parameters. And in your constructor body, this is where we're going to be doing the meat of the programming. the first thing we're going to want to do is add a title. Now this super right here, this super keyword is how you call methods from the super class. So since we're extending JFrame, it is the JFrame constructor. So go ahead, and the constructor for the JFrame is pretty much the title. So go ahead and write the title. So you know, you guys didn't need to know that. All you guys need to know is, in order to add a title to your window, just put super the title. I just want to tell you guys, if you don't know what the super does, it allows you access to your super class. So you know, a little bit of information for everyone. So now that we have a title on our window, we can go ahead and make the layout for the buttons. We can do the set layout, and you guys should know this still from the last tutorials when we were working on GUIs. And we'll just go ahead and put new flow layout, just like that. And now this just gives us a default layout, so we don't have to code it ourselves. And now let's go ahead and add our first button to our screen. So we'll take that variable we made. I name mine reg. You can name yours whatever. Equals new J button. And this J button method is a method to add a button, and it takes one parameter for here, and it's pretty much the text that's going to be on the button. I'm just going to name mine reg button. So now if we go ahead and add this to the screen, we now have a blank screen that has a title of the title on the title bar, and we have a button that says reg button on it. Well, that's pretty good, pretty neat, but we can do better. Let's go ahead and make a button using our own custom picture in it, and when you roll over it, you get another picture. So the first thing I want to show you guys is that I have two pictures already right here. And how did I get these pictures here so I can use? First of all, I want to tell you guys, when you create your buttons, make them like 40 by 40, and make sure you save them as ping. I tried to save them as GIF or JPEG, and ping is the only one that like gave me so it could work all the time. Java supports like GIF and JPEG and all the regular image files, but for some reason only ping was working on my computer. Maybe it's a Vista thing, maybe it's not. But once you create these images, here's where you put them. Go ahead to my computer, and you need to find the files you're working on, these class files. Mine, the default workspace, are in C, users, Greg, and then it is in a workspace. And go ahead and go to, let's see, mine is in Bucky, source, and then this is where all your class files are, like apples, that GUI one we just created. Put them in the same directory as that, so then you don't have to write a bunch of image paths. You can just write the file name and you're good to go. So your workspace might be a little different, and if you don't know where your workspace is, as soon as you open Eclipse, it tells you where your workspace is. So just copy that, find it, and that is where you want to put your ping files right there. So now that you got your ping files in your same directory as your class, we can go ahead and well, make some fancy buttons. So let's go ahead, and how you do that is in your icon class, and you have to name it icon. Go ahead and give it an object name such as B, and what we need to do is put new image icon, and this is built in, so you can't change any of this. Let's go ahead and put get class, which is this class, and then put get resource, and this resource is going to be the file, and the resource is going to be, well, I named mine b.ping. And what this does is pretty much take that image and save it in an object named B. So now we actually have two images, or at least I do. I have one named B and one named X. So let's go ahead and create a new one by pasting that in. Icon X is equal to new image x.ping. And if you're wondering, alright, what's this b.ping and x.ping? They're actually just two images I made in Photoshop earlier, so you guys won't have them on your computer, but I just needed a little something to test on, so that's what I did. So now that I have an image named B and an image named X, I can go ahead and change those in the buttons. So what I'm gonna do is take that custom button, remember I named it custom out here, and do custom And for the value, I'm going to set it equal to new J button. And for my parameters, it first takes the name what's on the button, and I'm going to name it custom. And for the second parameter, this is an optional parameter. You can have the image you want to appear on the button as well. So I'm going to have B. And this is pretty much just a little graphic. It's a 40 by 40 graphic, and it's like, well, I guess you guys are going to see. And another cool thing that we can do with it, if you said, alright, on the button we just created, there's an image. Okay, I got that. But what are you going to do with this X image right here? Well, that X image is going to be the rollover for it. So whenever we want to create a rollover, what we do is type the name of that button right there, and you need to put set rollover icon right there. Actually, set rollover. I selected the wrong one. Embarrassing. And the argument for this is, of course, the image you want to roll over. And now let's just add the custom button to the screen. So now we got two buttons on the screen right here. We have a regular button and we have a custom button. So in the next tutorial, we're going to be creating a class so when we click the button, it's going to handle the event. And we're also going to be that's it. We're going to be seeing these buttons in action. And I'll also go over everything I did in case I kind of confused you by going too fast. But for now, my tutorial is getting too long, so thank you guys for watching. Make sure you check out the next tutorial where we see these buttons in action. So again, thank you. Don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you next time. What's up, guys? Welcome to your 63rd Java tutorial. And in the 62nd Java tutorial, we made two buttons and put them on the screen, one right here and one right here. So now in this tutorial, what we're going to be doing is building some kind of handling events. So when we click the button, something actually happens. So we're actually going to be building a whole new class called, well, we'll name it something like handler class. But for now, we're just going to be creating the object for it. So let's go ahead and put handler class, and we're probably going to be getting an error right there, and we'll name it handler object equals new handler class. And why are we getting an error? Because we didn't create a class named handler class yet, but trust me, we will. So now let's go ahead and add some action listeners. So reg, which is the name of the first button, we'll just go ahead and add action listener right there. And for the parameter, it takes the object handler. So that's why we needed to create a class before, or excuse me, an object before we created that class. Handler, and let's go ahead and just add this same thing to our other button, which is named custom. There we go, right there. And what this pretty much does, add action listener, is pretty much the beginning of adding pretty much a handler for our buttons. So anyways, let's see, I think that's everything we needed to put in the constructor. So this whole thing right here is your constructor right here. So we want to build another class called handler class, but let's build it outside of the constructor. So end your parentheses, and outside of your constructor, let's add some space right there. Let's go ahead and type private class handler class. And we need to name it handler class because we named this handler class right here. If you name something different up here, create the same down here. And yes, we are putting a class inside this main class. We are allowed to put classes inside classes. So, just letting you know, we can do that. Why? Because we just did. And we'll have this implements. There we go. Did I spell that right? Implement action listener. And when a class implements another class, what does that mean? When a class implements another class, like we're implementing, did I spell that right? I was wondering how I was getting in line. When we have a class and it implements action listener, what does implement means? I had a couple of questions asked me on the other tutorial. What implement means in a nutshell is we're saying to action listener, alright, we want to use your class in your method, and action listener says, alright, if you implement me, I'll let you use my methods, but you have to overwrite every single method in my class. And we're saying, alright, we're gonna inherit all your classes from you, but we promise we're gonna overwrite it. And it's a little more complex than that, but in a nutshell, that's basically what it means. So now, any method that's in the action listener class, we're gonna have to overwrite it and create one ourselves. Lucky for us, there's only one method in the action listener class, and this is called action performed. So lucky for us, we only have to create one method, and it's going to overwrite this action performed method. So let's go ahead and do that right now. We'll set it equal to public void action performed, just like this, and as a parameter it takes action event. So that's all we have to do, and in the method body, what we write in here is what we want to happen when one of these buttons are clicked. So since we added the functionality of add action listener class to handler, it pretty much, whenever we click this button, this happens, and that's what we're going to create right here, the functionality for it. So whenever we create regular, this is going to happen. Whenever we create custom, this is going to happen. So enough talking, let's just go ahead and do it. What we want to happen is we want J option pane to pop up, which is pretty much a separate window, and we want show message dialog, and I didn't feel like typing it because I was lazy, so I just did that. And this takes a couple of parameters itself, and that is null, and that's just positioning. And let's just go ahead and put string format, put some text on the screen. The first one will be nothing fancy, just %s, and the second argument will pretty much be event, and you'll see what this does later on. Nice little surprise for you. Get action command, just like that. And now I just got to make sure I don't have any errors, and now that we don't, we can go ahead and we can call this main pretty much class. So go ahead to where your main method is for the whole entire program, because that's where we're going to be doing. Now as you can see, you need to import JavaX Swing JFrame, and this pretty much lets you use Windows. I already imported it because I didn't want to have to forget. So now we can go ahead and make a GUI object. So GUI, or whatever you name this class, I'm going to name my GUI object GO for GUI object, equals new GUI, doesn't take any parameters in the constructor, and now just put go set default close operation. And you definitely need to have this, or else your program isn't going to be able to close. And then you need to put in here jframe dot exit on close. So make sure you have that, it's pretty important. If not, did I spell something wrong? Is, oh, here we go, is undefined for the type GUI, set default close operation. There we go. Spelling, it's key, kids, it's key. You definitely need to learn that skill in school, unlike me. So the next thing we want to do is pretty much set the size for our window, and we can do this with a set size built-in method, and you can set it to anything you want. I'm going to set mine by 300 by 200. And the last thing is you need to make sure it's visible. So go dot set visible, and its Boolean value, just set it equal to true. If you set it equal to false, it won't show up, and we do want it to show up. So let's go ahead and run this right here, and here's what we see. We see a regular button right here that when we click it, it says reg button, and we see a custom button that when we hover over it, the rollover changes, and when we click it, it says custom. Okay, regular button, custom. Wow, this is an awesome program. We should definitely market this, try to sell it to Microsoft or someone, because they could use this. I mean, look at this, flawless, no bugs or anything. That's amazing. So now let me see how much time I have left on my tutorial. 2 minutes. I'll give you guys a quick little walkthrough of how this works again. I'll just give you guys the meat of the tutorial. We created 2 variables, and those were going to be to store our buttons. Next thing, in our constructor, we added a title to our window. We gave our window a layout, which is pretty much the default layout. We added a regular button, as you can see here, and then we made 2 images, and we stored them in objects B and X. And then we pretty much added another button, a custom button, with the image B by default, and when we rolled over it, we got the image X and we added it to the screen. Lastly, we created a new class which pretty much was to handle the events when we clicked our button. We said, alright, for this regular button we want to have an event when we click it, and for this custom button we wanted to have an event when we clicked it, so they just weren't pretty much plain old buttons just sitting there doing nothing. And then, since we said, alright, we want some functionality, we actually had to make a class to add some functionality to it. In this event.getAction command, this pretty much just gave you the name of the button. So that's pretty much all that did. Real basic stuff here. And the next tutorial we're going to be going over some other stuff for GUIs as well. We're probably going to be focusing on GUIs and event handling for a little bit, since, you know, it's pretty much one of the coolest things in Java we can do. So thank you guys for watching this tutorial. Don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you next tutorial. What's up, guys? Welcome to your 64th Java tutorial, and in this tutorial I'm going to be teaching you guys how to add checkboxes to your GUI. And yes, it's going to be awesome, so pay attention. So I already got my imports right there. If you want to copy those, go ahead, but I'm going to go ahead and minimize that right now. So if you need to copy them, pause your screen, but if not, see you later. They're annoying me. So now I already made this class called GUI, and it extends JFrame like before, but I got rid of everything in the class. So now I can go ahead and start, well, pretty much making everything again. So in this program we're going to build 3 variables. One's going to be a text box with a sentence in it, and we're going to have 2 checkboxes underneath, one that says bold and one that says italicize. And whenever we click bold, it's going to bold the text, and whenever we click italics, it's going to italicize the text. So we need 3 private variables. So we'll name private J text field, and this is going to hold the text, and we're going to name this TF for text field. And we need 2 more, private J checkbox. Make sure I spelled it right. Don't want to spell it like the Czech Republic. Checkbox. And we'll just name this like bold box, because this was going to be the one in bold. And private, and this is going to be another checkbox. Why did I just not copy and paste that? And this is going to be like italic box or something like that. So now we have 3 variables that are going to hold the text field, the bold box, and the checkbox. One's a text field, 2 are checkboxes. So now let's go ahead and, well, I guess we can go ahead and build our constructor now. So public GUI, and doesn't take any parameters, of course. And let's just go ahead and, first thing, add a title, of course. Super, just put like the title, and the next thing we need layout. Set layout, and we're just a future heads up, we're going to be actually going over how to make custom layouts in a couple of tutorials, but for now we'll just go with the default, because, you know, works pretty good. So new flow layout will give us the default layout, and now we can go ahead and start adding stuff to the screen. So that text field, we want to set it equal to new J text field. And as our parameters, the first one is just right, this is a sentence or something like that with a size of 20, and that pretty much gives us a text field in the TF variable. And now let's just go ahead and we can do stuff to that text field now. The first thing that we want to do is pretty much set a font to it. So let's just go ahead and set a font, like, just make it, actually do this too, put new font, there we go. And as your parameters, put serif, and don't put anything else, because Java only accepts a couple weird ones. So font plain, and plain means like not bolded, not italicized or anything, and a size of 14. So that's how you set the font. You set the font with new font method, and it takes serif, and make sure it's serif because I know for a fact that serif, no matter what version of Java or what platform you run on, it's going to show up. So make sure you do it serif just like that. And now that we got a text box with, it says this is a sentence, we pretty much have all the text. Now all we have to do is add it to the screen. So add TF. I mean, it would be a waste if we created all that and we didn't even add it to the screen. So now we got that text field right there. Now we can go ahead and make our two little checkboxes to add to the screen underneath it. So let's go ahead and make bold box, or whatever you named your variable. And let's go ahead and set this equal to new J checkbox, just like that. And the parameters it takes, anytime you make a checkbox, there's going to be a little thing to the right hand side of it, or else you're not going to know what the heck it does. So it's like a little prompt to tell you what this text box does, or a checkbox does. I'm just going to say bold because, I mean, you don't need any more instructions than that. And let's go ahead and do the skin with the italic box. So copy this because we're lazy and paste it, and italic box, I think that's what I named it. Yep. And just put italics or italicize or something like that. And now let's go ahead and add both of these to the screen. Add bold box to the screen, and add, let me scroll down a little bit. There we go, right there. Add italic box to the screen. There we go. So now we have pretty much three things on the screen: a text field and two checkboxes underneath it. The thing is, they're just chilling on the screen right now, not really doing anything. So what we need to do is add some functionality to it. So just like before, we're going to create a new class called handler class, and we're going to name the object handler and set it equal to new handler class, just like that. And even though we didn't create that class yet, we're going to use it later on. So now let's go ahead and add an item listener for it. So bold, what do we name? Bold box dot add item. Whoa. I did not mean to type that. Add item listener. And what are we going to add? It takes an object as its parameter, so let's just add handler. So now let's do the same thing. Actually, copy and paste that, save some time. Copy and paste. Now we can do the same thing right here with italics. So this pretty much, now that we have added an action, or excuse me, an item listener, we have a listener waiting. And what this does is pretty much waits for something to happen to bold box or italic box. And the only thing that can happen is you can click it. So now something's going to happen and it's going to wait to be clicked, and when it gets clicked, it's going to recognize that it gets clicked. So now that we are able to recognize when it gets clicked, let's go ahead and make something happen when it gets clicked. I mean, you can recognize it, so might as well. So the first thing we need to do is create a private handler class. So private, whoa, not right there, right here. Private, I cannot type today. Handler class, and implements, did I spell that right? Item listener, like that. And you don't want, and for our body of our class, just like this. Actually, in the next tutorial, I'm gonna show you guys what goes in the body, and it's pretty different than the last tutorial, so you guys definitely want to pay attention to this. But another thing that I want to point out before I forget, whenever you put a class inside another class, and if you're saying, alright Bucky, how come you just don't put this class outside right here and make two totally different classes? How come you need an inner class to go inside this? Well, if you put a class inside another class, then this class, this inner class, it can see all of the variables and the methods in the outer class. So if you were to make two separate classes, either on the outside of this or in a totally different file, then it's not going to be able to see the variables and methods. And since we want to make this class use some of the methods and variables in here, that's why we need to put this class inside the bigger class right here. So that is why I put this handler class inside this GUI class or GUI class. But again, in the next tutorial, I'm going to show you guys, add some functionality to tell you guys when you click this checkbox, here's what happens. When you click the other one, here's what happens. When you click them both, here's what happens to the text. But for now, that's it for this tutorial. I'm running out of time, so thank you guys for watching, and I will see you next time. What's up, guys? Welcome to your 65th Java tutorial, and in this tutorial we're going to be building a new class to handle the events when both of our checkboxes are checked. So let's go ahead and make a new class called handler class to do just this. We'll go private class, name it handler class. There we go. Get it eventually. Implements. I gotta type slow. AMP implements item listener. There we go. Now what this does pretty much is a class that implements item listener. And what implements mean is we get to use all the methods from item listener, but we're making a promise to item listener. Item listener says, alright, here's what would happen. If they were having a conversation, item listener would be like, alright, you want to inherit from me? Fine, you can. But promise, if you implement from me, you have to overwrite each one of my classes. So look at this. It says, the type handler class must implement the inherited abstract method. So there's abstract methods in item listener that we need to overwrite pretty much. Lucky for us, there's only one method in item listener, not a very big class, and this method is called item state changed. So let's go ahead and overwrite this baby right now. So public void item state change, right like that. Make sure you spell it right, if not you're gonna have some problems. And the parameter it takes here is the item event object. So what's going on pretty much is this. Every time you click one of these checkboxes, since we attach them to item listener, something called an item event occurs, or pretty much an event occurs. Now what we can do with this event is add some functionality to it, and it can be handled by an item listener object which we created. So now whenever, since this item listener is listening to this bold box, whenever an item event occurs, it's gonna run whatever's in here. So let's go ahead and make some code to put in here. First of all, we're gonna want font, name it font, and set it equal to null. And this is pretty much just gonna store the font that we're gonna change. So what we want to do is say, alright, if you click the bold box, we want it bold. If you click the italic box, we want the font italics. If you click the bold box and the italic box, we want them bold and italics. If nothing's clicked, just have plain font. So let's go ahead and first write if bold box dot, and the thing you write is selected, just like that. And this is built-in method to show if it's checked or not. So if bold box is selected, and let me find it, and what did I name it? Italic box dot is selected, then what do we want to do? Well, let's go ahead and change that font equal to new font, and we're going to be doing a lot of copy and pasting after this. We want to change it to new font. First of all, we want to make it serif, just like before. We want to take that font and make it bold, and actually we need that all in caps, I forgot. And we also want to take that font and make it italic, and then we want the size to be 14. So get out of my way, Haas. So what this means, if you press the bold box and the italic box, if both of them are checked, then we want to change the font to bold and italics. So what other options do we have here? Well, we have else if. We can also have an option that if only the bold box is selected. So let me tighten that up. So actually we can just go ahead and copy this. A little too easy. So else if only the bold box is selected, then what do we want to do? We want to take that font and set it equal to new font, and we can probably copy this. Font equals serif bold, copy. What did I copy? There we go, too easy. So if only the bold box selected, then font equals serif bold and in a size of 14. So now let's go ahead and make another else if for only if the italics is selected. So copy, we're getting real lazy here, but really efficient. How awesome is that? Italics, what's the name? Italic box, there we go. It's selected. Then we want to change the font to font italic. So now we only have one other option. If it runs through and sees that if bold is selected and italic is selected, nope. If bold selected, nope. If italics is selected, nope. Else, this only else is going to occur if nothing is selected. So what do we want to do? We want to do the font and set it equal to new font, and I guess I won't copy and paste it this time. First is serif, and the rest is font.plain, and of course we want a size 14 still. So now, well, looks like we're good to go. And the last thing we have to do, now that we actually change that font, we actually need to set the font. So in our text field, we need to set font equal to that font that we just changed. So this pretty much says, alright, depending on what you selected, I'm going to style the font a certain way, and then at the end, when it tests for all the styles, it says, alright, I'm pretty much just going to set it on the screen right now. So now I have this from the last tutorial, which you guys can see. It pretty much just makes a new window on the screen, puts a function on the window so you can actually close it, set a size for that window, and makes that window visible. So now if we run this and click OK, we go ahead and we got this thing right here. And I probably should change that size, but this is good. Now you see when you click bold, the sentence bolds. When you click italics, it italicizes too. If you unclick bold, it just is only italics and not bold, and if you uncheck them both, it's back to normal. Now let me give you guys a real quick walkthrough one more time of how this works. Take a deep breath. You guys ready? Good. We pretty much made 3 variables on the screen to hold the text field, the bold box, and the italic box. In our constructor, we set the title and the layout. Nothing new. We pretty much added the text field, bold box, and italic box to the screen. And then we created a handler class to handle these events. Now again, anytime you click one of these boxes, something called an item event occurs. Now this can be handled by something called an item listener object. So that's why we needed to link this object to this class. Then once we do that, we can handle the events using a method called item state changed. Now this automatically runs, well, just like I told you before. And what we did pretty much is we pretty much had a variable called font to stylize the font right here, 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 and here. And then we pretty much, once we found our style, depending on what was checked, we set it to the screen. And then we just ran our program, made a window, good to go. So that's your real quick tutorial on, these are called state boxes because they maintain a state. Like when you click them right here, I'll show you why. When you click them, they stay like that, so that's called maintaining a state. So that's it for this tutorial. Thank you guys for watching. In the next tutorial we'll be going over more GUIs, and we will be eventually making this box pretty effing sweet. For right now it doesn't do a whole lot, but you know, it will. Oh, and another thing, that if you follow my channel, you know that I give away prizes sometime. I am waiting for prizes to come in the mail now, and it will be the best giveaway I had so far. So just a little tip for you guys who actually stuck through this tutorial and watched it all. Nice little surprise. Don't tell anyone else. So trust me, when I get my prizes, it should be like next week or something. They're going to be the best giveaways ever. So, you know, something to look forward to. But for now, thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you next tutorial. What is up, guys? Welcome to your 66th Java tutorial. And in this tutorial, we're going to be making a GUI with radio buttons on it. And what a radio button is, it's kind of like a checkbox, but the only difference is that you can only have one radio button selected at a time. So if you have 4 radio buttons and they're side to side, if one's selected and then you click another one, the other one automatically deselects. And they actually got their name from the old radios, I guess. I don't even know if I was alive during this time, but evidently the old radios, when you pressed one button, all the other buttons would pop out, so you can only have one button selected at a time. So that's your real quick tutorial on what we're doing, and also a little tutorial on old-fashioned automobiles. So you know, this is like a 2-for-1. So let's go ahead and start making this right here. We're gonna have, let's see, like 10 variables or something to start out. The first variable we need is something called a J text field, and this is just the same one from last tutorial, and I'll just name this TF like last time. And this is pretty much going to be the field that stores a text, if you couldn't tell. And next we're going to have a font variable, and we're going to have 4 types of font. We're going to have plain font, we're going to have bold font, and we'll name that BF, best friend. And we will have another font called italic font, and you can't write if like this because if is a keyword, so you gotta write ITF. That might be confusing, but hey, we'll get through it. And then lastly, we're gonna have a font that's both bold and italic, so I'm gonna put bold italic font, BIF, BIF. It's a pretty cool looking variable, BIF. I gotta name more stuff BIF. Next, we're gonna have 4 radio buttons, and these are the buttons I was talking about. So let's go private, and then it's J radio button, just like that. And I'm gonna name my first button plain button. And when you click this button, it's gonna give you that plain font right there. So now let me copy this because I'm lazy and make 3 more. Next, I'm gonna have a bold button, BB. Next, I'm gonna have an italic button named IB. And next, I'm gonna have a bold italic button named BIB. So now this plain gives you plain font, bold italic font, bold and italic font when you click these buttons. And the last variable we're going to be using in this tutorial is actually a group variable. So let's go ahead and write private button group, and you can name it anything you want. I'm going to name my group for simplicity. And what this group is going to do is it's pretty much going to establish a relationship so that only one button can be selected at a time. If we didn't have them related, then it would pretty much be 4 separate buttons on your screen, each acting independently. We want them to each be part of a family, so that way they can know when each other's clicked and each other's unclicked, or selected or deselected, if you prefer that. So now enough with the variables. Let's go ahead and start making our constructor. Public GUI, it won't take any parameters, and let's go ahead and start making the body. The first thing that we're going to want to add in our constructor is of course the title, like always, and I will name mine the title. Pretty cool, huh? And the next thing I want is the layout, so I'm going to put set layout, and of course in here, since we don't know anything else, new small flow layout, just like that. Looks good. So now we got a title and a layout on our window. What else can we do to this? Well, let's go ahead and add that text field that I talked to you guys about, and I named it TF if you guys forgot, and I'm going to set it equal to new J text field, and this field needs to be capitalized. And for my parameters, I'm going to first have what's in the text field, so I'm going to put Bucky is awesome and hot. That's what that's what girls usually say to me when I'm walking down the street. But anyways, and 25 for size, and now we just need to add this text field to the screen because we definitely want that to show up. So now we got a title, a layout, and a text field just chilling on our screen. So what else can we add? Well, we probably want to put those buttons on there. So I'm going to take that PB, which is that plain button. I'm going to set it equal to new J radio button, just like that. And the parameters for a button is first, what do you want to appear to the right of the button? I'm just going to have plain, since it's plain font, and I'm going to set this equal to true. Now hold on and let me itch my ear. Oh yeah, that feels good. Oh yeah, get in there. Now the parameters it takes for true and false are pretty much true is checked and false is unchecked. So if we're establishing a relationship, we can only have one true at a time. So the first thing we want to do is set one of them to true, and later on it's going to do it automatically for us when we click it. But for now, let's just go ahead and copy this, and the rest of them are going to be false, by the way, since we only want one checked at a time, because that's kind of the concept of radio button. The next bold button is going to be equal to new J radio button. We'll put this equal to bold, and we'll put this equal to false. Now, let's go ahead and copy this one and make life a little bit easier. So now we have 2 buttons created. Now let's go ahead and, what do we name this other one? Italic button for IB. Probably should have named it a little more descriptive, but I didn't. And we'll name this italic, and this will be the text chilling next to the button. It'll set this equal to false too. And our last button is named bib, bold and italic button. So we'll just have like bold and italic sitting next to it. So now that we created these 4 button objects, we can go ahead and add them to the screen using add and PB. It should make this so you can add multiple ones at one time, but I don't think they do. So add BB, add IB, and add, what else we got here? Bib. Boom, 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 boom. There, that's enough of that. So now we pretty much created 4 buttons, and we actually added them to the screen so that they showed up. Now, like I said before, the last variable we had was this button group right here. So that's what we're going to be doing right here. Right now we're going to be setting an object called group, and we're going to be setting it equal to new button group, like that. And this doesn't take any parameters for the constructor. And what this group is going to do is anytime you add an element to this group, it's going to add it pretty much to the group. Pretty confusing, huh? So let's go ahead and group add, and the first thing we're going to want to add is the PB, which is the plain button. So now this group has 1 button in it. So let's go ahead and add another one. Group.add.bb. Now the group has 2 buttons in it. I think you see where this is going. Group.add IB. It already has B in there for us. Pretty cool. And group.add, and first one, or excuse me, the last one, bib. So now our family has 4 buttons in it. And if you're wondering, alright, how come we needed to group them? We need to group them so that they know when each other is checked and when each other is not checked. Since we group these, they automatically by default know that when one of these is checked, the rest of us has to turn off. So that way only 1 button can be checked at a time. It's pretty cool functionality that they, built that in for us, and we don't have to talk to each other for us. So the last thing I'm probably going to be doing in this tutorial is just setting the font, which is up here, PF, BF, ITF, and BIF. This is pretty much the fonts that I'm going to set, and I need these fonts to pass in later. So the first thing, the plain font, is going to happen when you click that plain button, and it's going to be equal to new font, and in your parameters for font, first type serif, and lastly font.plain, and give it like a size of 14 or something. Looks good. And now let's go ahead and do this for the other one. So there's gonna be, let me think, plain font, bold font, italic font. So plain font, bold font, italic font, bold and italic font. So plain font, bold font, italic font, and BIF, right? Yep, looks good to me. So now this is going to be font dot bold for the bold, italic font is going to be italic, and the bold and italic font is going to be font dot bold plus font dot italic, just like that. So now we got our 4 fonts on the screen. Well, not yet, but that's it for this tutorial. So I'm going to catch up with you on the next tutorial. Don't forget to watch it. Don't forget to subscribe. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be amazing. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next tutorial where we will finish this program. What's going on, everyone? Welcome to your 67th Java tutorial. And in this tutorial, we're going to be finishing this program demonstrating J radio buttons. So where we left off on the last tutorial, we pretty much made 4 different kinds of fonts. And now what we need to do is pretty much take that text field, and we need to set it equal to a font by default. And we just need to set it equal to a font by default, so when the program runs for the first time, it knows what font to use. So I'm going to set it equal to plain font because I'm just a plain old guy. You can set it equal to different font if you want, but I ain't gonna. So now what we need to do is pretty much create an add item listener for each button. So I'm going to take that plain button first and add item listener, just like that. Phlegm. There we go. Got to clear out my throat. And the parameter this add item listener takes is going to be this. Get out of my way. New handler class, and for the constructor we're going to pass in the plain font. Now what happens is this: an add item listener pretty much chills there and waits for something to happen to that item, which is in this case the plain button. Now whenever it does happen, what do we want the object, because this is an object in here, and what do we want it to do? Well, for the handler class, it's going to be handling it, or it's pretty much the code that's going to happen if this button is clicked. We need to pass in plain font to the constructor. And let me go ahead and add a comment. So this wait for event to happen, and this is what this does, and pass in font object to constructor. And we didn't even create a class or constructor yet, so this might be confusing, but I spelled constructor wrong. See, this thing, if I click, it's not only a platform, but it also is a spell checker. So since I spelled constructor wrong, it corrected it for me. How cool is that? Compiler and a spell checker, double banger. So now let's go ahead and add this for well, the rest of them. Copy this and put, that's for a bold button, italic button, and bold and italic button. So bold button, let's see, italic button is IB, and bold and italic button, and of course we need to change these to bold font, and italic font was ITF, and the bold and italic font was that. So now we pretty much got our constructor of our main class built. Now we can go ahead, and we're getting this error message because handler class is not a class yet. So let's change that right now. Let's go ahead and make a handler class, and we're going to put this inside the other class. So let's go ahead and make private class handler class right there. No, my sound didn't mess up. I actually just said that. Implements item listener, and you guys know what implements means from the last tutorials. So inside my handler class, the first thing I'm going to want to do is create a variable, since you know, we're just going to need one. It's going to be a font variable, and it's set it equal to the name of font, because I mean, makes sense, right? The next thing I'm going to want to do is create that constructor that we used up here. Now as you can see, that constructor takes a font object as its argument, so we got to make sure we have a font object as its argument when we create it. So let's go ahead and name public handler class, and let's go ahead and put like font and just name it F or something. So now plus sign WTF. So now in our constructor for this, and let me make sure, yep, looks right to me. Let's go ahead and just add font and set it equal to F. And now let's see what error I'm getting. Oh, I must inherit the abstract method item listener item state changed. So since we use item listener, it has a method in it called item state change that we need to use. So let me add a comment to here, and what this does is the font object gets variable font. This is pretty much just changing the object we pass in to the variable font. So now that we implemented from item listener, we need to use that method called item state changed. So let's go ahead and make a new method called public void doesn't return anything, item state changed, and if I spelled that right, we should be good. So now this argument takes an item event, and we'll just name it event, and for this in the body, let's just go ahead and have something like text font, and we'll set it equal to set font for that font. So now if I do this, my errors should go away, but they're not, so I'm going to pause it and figure out what's wrong. Okay guys, I found my error, and it was really embarrassing. Actually, for the constructor of handler class, I put handler class, and I spelled it wrong. So you definitely need to put handler class and spell your constructors right. Pretty embarrassing if you ask me. So, you know, I'm not going to let it happen again, I promise. So now that we got all that changed, let's go ahead and, well, I'll add a comment for this for ease of reading. We'll put sets the font to the font object that was passed in. Looks good. So, well, let me go ahead and run this, then I'll talk you guys through it. So I'm just going to use my sane object from last tutorial. If you didn't watch my last tutorial, then pause the video right now and copy that. And I'm just going to go ahead and run this, and hopefully it works. So now we got Bucky is awesome as hot. Thank you. And it's playing by default like we said before. And now you can see these radio buttons, since they're part of a group, then whenever we click one, then the rest uncheck. And that is because they are part of a group and they're able to see each other or know what each other is doing. And that's some built-in methods that allow you to do that. So that's pretty cool right there. So let me talk you guys one last time through how we did this. Well, let's see. Let's just get to the hard stuff. We made variables. We added all the stuff to the screen right here. Bam. Here's the confusing stuff. Aside from adding all the stuff to the screen, here's what we did. We pretty much need to add item listener to each button so that something can sit on those buttons and wait for it to be clicked or unclicked. Now, add item listener, this built-in method, it takes this handler class object as a parameter. So what this is pretty much saying, alright, we're going to be waiting for something to happen, and as soon as it clicks, then I'm going to call this class right here, and that's the code that's going to happen when this event happens. So now that we told it, alright, we want you to wait for something to happen, and when it happens, do this, we said, alright, what do we want to do? Well, we created a new handler class, and the constructor for that class is called handler class, of course, and it takes a font object. So let's go ahead and look at that constructor right now. The constructor, all it does is it gets that font, which was plain font, and sets it equal to the name font, or the variable font. And why do we need to set it equal to this variable? So we can use it later on to set the font. So pretty much we took that font, set it equal to the word font, and then in the item state change, which pretty much is the event that happens when it's clicked, it takes that font and sets it equal to plain font, bold font, italic font, or plain and bold font, or excuse me, bold and italic font. So now that we have a constructor and our item state changed, we're good to go, and we were able to run the program. So that's your real quick tutorial of radio buttons. And the last thing that you guys don't want to forget, don't forget to group your buttons right here. Set it equal to new button group objects. In this group allows your buttons to be one big family and allows them to see what each other is doing, and this lets them know when each other is selected or deselected. So that's that for this tutorial. Hope you guys learned a little something, not too much of course. So thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to check out all my contests, and I will see you next time. What is going on, guys? Welcome to your 68th Java tutorial. And in this tutorial I'm going to tell you guys how to make something called J combo boxes. Now what a J combo box is, it's pretty much just a drop down list, but that's what Java named it, so you know they had to be different. So let's go ahead and enough of the small talk, let's get started making it. And I just want to tell you guys what this combo box is going to do is it's going to give you a list of pictures to drop down in your drop down list, and depending on what picture you select is what's going to appear on your screen. So that's a real quick overview of the program. So we need two variables. One's going to be the J combo box, which is going to be the drop down list itself, and I'm just going to name mine box. You can name yours list if you want, but again I'm going to name mine box. And the next thing we need is the picture to appear on the right hand side of it, so I'm going to make it private J label, and the pictures are named J label in Java, and I'm going to name my variable picture. I mean, why not? It's nice and easy. Now the next thing we need to create is actually two arrays. Now you see here I already have two images, b.ping and x.ping, and these are pretty much just an image that says b and an image that says x with a little graphics on it. So we need to create two arrays. The first array is going to store the file name, and the second array is going to store the picture itself. So let's go ahead and put private static, we don't want it to change, string. And remember, this is going to store the path, and the path is just a string, and I'm going to name it file name, and we'll set it equal to b.ping, and make sure you put it in quotes since it's a string. So that's the first element of the array, and the second one is x, dot ping. Make sure I got png. And so now we have an array called file name, and it has two elements in it, b.ping and x.ping. Simple enough. Now let's go ahead and add, or excuse me, create a new array that is an icon array, and we do it like that, and we'll name this one pics, and this is going to store the files themselves. So let's go ahead and as the first element, what we need to do is put new image icon, and for the parameter of image icon, put get class, and it's going to be this class itself. It's going to select and get resource, and the resource for this is going to be the parameter it takes as a name, and for the name we can write b.ping, but let's go ahead and write file name with the index of 0. So our first element in this array is the file name index of 0. So let's see, 1, 2, make sure I got my parentheses. There are a lot of parentheses here. Yep, that's right. So now let's go ahead and just copy this. So the first element in this pics array is pretty much this b picture itself. This is just a file name. This is the actual image. So let's go ahead and add the second array by pasting that, and the second element is file name 1. Remember, arrays start at 0 and then the next one is 1. So now we can go ahead and go to our next line. So now we got two arrays. One stores the file names and one stores the pictures, and we're actually going to be using the file names later, so that's why I just didn't put the file names right here. You'll see why in a little bit. So now that we got all our variables and arrays, we can go ahead and start building the constructor like we always do. So public, my class is named GUI, and let's go ahead and add a body to that constructor. And the first thing we're going to want to add, as always, is the title. And I'm just going to write the title, nothing fancy, and set layout to, there we go. And the layout for this, since we didn't learn layouts yet, is new flow layout, just like that. So now we have a title and a layout on our window. What else can we do? The first thing we're going to want to do is create that drop down box with the file names as the list options. So I'm going to take that box variable that I created up here and set it equal to new j combo box, if I can spell, and the parameter it takes here is an array of options. And since we want our options to be bping and xping so the user knows what's going on, go ahead and write file name in here. And what this will do is automatically put all of these options in a list for us. How cool is that? So now let's go ahead and get my cursor set up and go to the next line. And what can we do after this? Well, we have this box, this drop down box just chilling here right now. What we want to do is add some functionality to it, and we do this by adding an item listener. So actually I'm going to do this in the next tutorial, since it's going to take well, I know I'm going to run out of time in this tutorial. But an overview right now, we created a box, we created a variable for the picture that we want to appear on the right side of the drop down box, we created an array of file names, an array of images, of my two images, we added a title, set the layout for our window, and we added a box to the window. Then in the next tutorial we're actually going to be adding some events to this box, so when you click one of the options something actually happens. But for now, that's it for this tutorial. Thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you next tutorial. What is going on, everyone? Welcome to your 69th Java tutorial. I've been making a lot of Java tutorials, I just noticed. And in this tutorial I'm going to show you guys how to add some functionality to the box. So what we need to do to add functionality is add an item listener. And what an item listener does is pretty much just chills there and waits for you to click something. And when it clicks it, it pretty much just, well, tells it to do something. So let's go ahead and take that box, because that's what we want to add an event to, and we'll go ahead and add item listener. And there we go. Now, as you know, an item listener usually takes an event handler object as its parameter, but I'm going to tell you guys how to do something real cool here. Instead of having a new object like handler and having it pass into the handler class, what you can do is if you go ahead and there we go, just like that, instead of having an object and creating a whole another outside class somewhere else, you can actually put something called an anonymous inner class in here. And what this does is it actually implements the item listener class. So here's how you do that. Go ahead and type new item listener, just like that, and this is your declaration for an anonymous class that implements item listener. So instead of having, like before, handler class implements item listener outside and we have to make a whole new class, what we can do is just go ahead and stick a class into here and pass it in for the parameter as add item listener, and we bypass that entire step of having to create a whole new separate class. So again, since we named an anonymous class that implements item listener, we need to use that method, and that's called item state changed, as you can see right there. So what this class has to have in there is only one method, and that's, well, let's go ahead and create it right now. Item listener has, let's go ahead and make it public void item state change. I gotta make sure I spell that right. And did I? Oh, yep. Nice. Now what we have to do is, of course, it types in item event just like that, and as our body for this, we just go ahead and write whatever we want to happen when we select one of the options. And here's how you can do that. Go ahead and make an if statement, and this if statement determines what option you selected. So if the event get state change, this pretty much, if you clicked a button, we want to set it equal to, or excuse me, we want to test if it's equal to item event dot selected. So what this pretty much means, alright, did you select a button? Is it equal to what was, this pretty much means what was selected, just in a nutshell. So what was selected, first of all, whatever you select, we want to take that picture, and remember this is just the picture that appears on our screen. We want to set icon, which pretty much means change the image, to, and the parameter says what icon do you want to change to. Well, we have an array called pics, and but we have, the thing is, we have two elements or two images in this one. So what one do we select? Well, go ahead and type box dot get selected index with empty parameters, just like that. Make sure I typed everything right. Parentheses, bam, bam. Now make sure the method get state change is undefined type, and oh, here we go. Hold on a second. Alright guys, in all of my excitedness, I did another stupid error. I actually put get state change instead of change. Quite embarrassing. Make sure you type that right. But now, pretty much, that's all we needed to do. So what this does is it makes an anonymous inner class, and this is the class itself. And in this class, the only thing we needed to do, since it implemented item listener, we needed to add an item state changed method, since that was the only method in item listener. And then we pretty much just said, alright, what item did you select, or what option did you select in the drop down list, and change the picture to that icon or item. So now we can go ahead and get out of add item listener, and we can pretty much just add all this to the screen. So add that box to the screen, and remember that box is just a drop down box, and now we want to take that picture and add it to the screen, but by default let's go ahead and set it equal to new j label, and we'll do pics 0, and this pretty much just gives it a default value, so you know, something appears before you choose any options. And lastly, let's just go ahead and add that picture to the screen just like that, and we shouldn't get any errors, shouldn't. And now let's go ahead and just run this, and I'll show you guys what we get. By default, again, like I said, we have B on the screen, which is at the index of 0. Then when we select X, our picture changes to X. We can go ahead and select B, X. We can do this all day if we want, really, but no time for that. We need to overview our program. So what we did is pretty much, let me get to the good stuff. We made a box variable, a picture variable, just to hold box and picture later on. we made an array of file names, and we made an array of images named pics, and then we went and go ahead in our constructor, which is pretty much making the window. We added a title, added a layout. We set that box equal to new J comma box, and it took the file names is the options. So again, if I go ahead and run this, these options right here are the default for file name, so that's why that was able to run. And the only confusing part, which we didn't know, is this: instead of having a new object and a new class, we just went ahead and stuck that handler class inside the add item listener, and that was actually an anonymous inner class. And what we needed to do is we needed to overwrite this method item state changed, because that was the only method in item listener, and we overrode it with a nice little function right here. And then we went ahead and added the box to the screen, then we went ahead and added the picture to the screen, and just gave it a default setting, and we were good to go. So again, here is our awesome little program right here, flawless, no bugs, no anything. So that's all you get for this tutorial. Thank you guys for watching. In the next tutorial, we're going to be going over something else cool you can do with GUIs. And well, that's it. So again, thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you next tutorial. What is going on, guys? Welcome to your 70th, there we go, draft tutorial. And in this tutorial, we're going to be going over something called JList. Now, what JList is it's pretty much a list for your GUI, and when you click on one of the options, we can make an event happen, such as, in this case, switching the background color. So let's go ahead and get started. If you can't tell, I imported one more thing here. So make sure you have all of your imports right here. If you need them, pause the screen, but you probably don't, so I'm just going to go ahead and minimize those right there. And now we're good to go. The first thing we're going to need to do is make a variable for that JList. So let's go ahead and make private JList, because that's what type it is, and I'm going to name mine list for simplicity. Now after this, what program we're going to be making is we're going to have a list of colors, and when you click on one of those colors, it changes the background. So we're going to have two arrays, one for the color name and one for the actual colors themselves that the computer can recognize. So one that we can recognize and one that the computer can recognize. So let's go ahead and make our first array, just the color names that we can recognize. So it's going to be private static string. It's just going to be the names of the colors, and just name it color names, and we'll set it equal to, let's go have a color like black, blue, red, and white. We'll have 4 colors in our list. You can have more if you want, but I'm just going to have these basic ones. And make sure to put them all in quotation marks like this, and then in your line with a semicolon, bam, you're good to go. So I have 4 color names in our first array called color names. Now the second thing I want to do is build an array of colors that the computer can understand. So go ahead, private static. Again, I'm going to name this array color, or excuse me, it's going to be of the color type, and I'm going to name it colors. And in this list, we're going to put the colors in the way that Java sees them, and that's this: color dot black, all in caps. So that's how Java sees colors or recognizes them. It's from the color class, and then you write the name of the color all in caps. And our next one's blue, so color dot blue, all in caps. And our next one's red, so color dot red, all in caps, and color dot white. So now we should be good to go. Looks like we aren't getting any errors. And now let's go ahead, and we have our 3 variables pretty much: list, color names, and colors. We can go ahead and build our constructor or window. So go ahead and build your constructor, and it's not going to take any arguments. Just go ahead and do some housekeeping stuff. Add the title, and where are you at, cursor? Ugh, got the hiccups, embarrassing. And next thing you want to do is set the layout, and just going to set this to normal flow layout by putting new flow layout. I wonder why they capitalized the F in that one. Pretty weird. And don't forget your empty parameters. So now we have a title and a layout. Now we can go ahead and start messing with our list. The first thing we want to do with our list variable is actually create something. And what we need to do is create a new JList, and the parameter JList takes is an array of what you want the person to see, and we want the person to see the color names is the options. So let's go ahead and just write color names in here. You don't need it in like quotation marks or anything like that. So now we have a list, and it pretty much is just a list of color names. What we want to do now is set how many rows, or pretty much the height of the list. So go ahead and take that list and put set visible, there we go, row count right there. Too easy. And what this is how many options the user can see by default. Now if you put like they can only see 4, but there's like 10 items in the list, a little scroll bar is going to appear on the right. But since we only have 4 and we put 4, then it should fit just perfect. The next thing you want to do is go list set what's it called, selection mode. Here we go, right there. Set selection mode. And for the parameter it takes is this. Some lists allow you to select one thing or another thing, and some lists allow you to select multiple items. The one we want to use is we only want to be able to have a single selection at a time. So we're going to have as a parameter list selection model dot single underscore selection, just like this. And now instead of like clicking control and selecting many things or shift, the user can only select one thing in our list at a time. So now the last thing we need to do, since we got our list all made, is just add it to the window, or well, yeah, that's all we need to do, add it to the window. So add new J scroll pane, and of course we want to add our list to here. And now we added our list to the window pretty much. So in the next tutorial we're going to be adding some functionality to this list, and it's a little different than the other tutorials. I'm going to be teaching you something even newer and easier in the next tutorial. But for now, thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and don't forget to check out the next tutorial. So I'll see you then. What is going on, everyone? How you guys doing? Welcome to your 71st Java tutorial. And in this tutorial we're going to be adding some functionality to this list we just made on the screen. So let's go ahead and inside our constructor still, let's go ahead down a couple lines, and what we want to do is add a selection listener to this list. So what we want to do is put list dot add list. Whoa, look at that, already has it for us. Add list selection listener, and then go ahead delete this because we're not going to need it. And we're going to make, just like last tutorial if you saw, another anonymous inner class. So go ahead and in your first line of the parameters for add list selection listener, what we want to do is make a new anonymous class. And remember, this is just an easier way of handling it. So put new list, let me see, list selection listener, just like that. It's going to take no parameters, and we should say must implement, must implement method value changed. So this is pretty much says whatever class we made implements list selection listener. It's just an easier way of bypassing it. The thing is, we need to make a method in here called value changed. That's what it's telling us right now. So in like order to fulfill our duties of implementing it. So let's go ahead and make public void value changed. And all this is pretty much what you need every time you make a J list. So let's go ahead, and for the parameters for this is list selection event, and go ahead and type event, and now we can go ahead and start doing the stuff that we want to do. So pretty much aside from this, all of this stuff is pretty much built in Java, and you need this every time. It's none of your own custom stuff. So it's just an easier way of adding some event handlers to your program. So now that we got all this housekeeping stuff done, let's get into the good stuff. What do we want to do when a user clicks one of the colors? Well, what we do want to do in people language is select that color and change the background to that color. So actually there's 3 different layers on our window. The first, there's a background, there's a content pane, and there's something called, I think it's called a glass pane. Now the content pane is on top of the background, so they have it set up really weird. You need to actually access the background through the content pane in order to change the background. So the first thing you need to do is get content pane like that, and the second thing you need to do is finally we get to our background. So let's go ahead and set background just like that, and I spelled that wrong. Background, that's a little bit better, and there we go, my error goes away. And so what do we want to set the background to? Well, in our parameters for here, let me just end this statement. In our parameters for here, we want to set it to one of these colors from the color list: color black, color blue, color red, color white. So the first thing we're going to need to do is add color and empty square brackets. And now what we want to appear in here is one of the numbers 1 through 4. So how can we get the numbers 1 through 4 depending on what they selected? Remember, in our list was the array, was the array color names, and our list was named list. So let's go ahead and put list dot get selected index. So it's automatically gonna know whenever we did not want to put that there. Let's see. So it's automatically gonna know that in our list that we just created. And why am I getting a line under color? Because it's actually colors. There we go. So whenever it clicks our list, and by it I mean we, it's automatically gonna know if we click the first, second, third, or fourth item in our list. It's gonna get that number, and it's gonna say, alright, if you click the third item in our list, I'm gonna pass 3 in for here. So colors 3 equals, let's see, colors 0, actually 1, 2, 3. So it's gonna be red. So that is how it happens like that. And remember, to set the background, you need to get the content pane and get set background. I don't know why they did it this way instead of just, set the background, but they did it this way. And don't forget, there's actually 3 layers: the content pane, the background, and I think it's called like a glass pane or something weird. So that's that for this tutorial, and let's actually run this program and see if it works. So as you see, by default it's nothing because we didn't set it to default value. Now when you click black, blue, white, red, blue, red, black, white, in any order, then that's pretty much just what happens. So one more time, let me walk you guys through that. The first thing we did is import all our stuff. Make sure you have those. It's key, trust me. And let's see, let's get to the important stuff. We made a list, which was a variable for our list. We made the color names, which is what we saw on the screen, and we had it correspond to the colors so that Java can understand it using the special color.black. Next, we made a constructor with a title, a layout, yada yada yada. We made a list and we set it equal to JList color names, which were the options that the user can see. Set the visible row count, which was 4 options by default. Then we made a single selection, so you can only select one at a time. And we made a JScroll pane, which gave us a scroll window if necessary. Next, we added all this stuff, which is pretty much the default stuff you have to add in Java. And finally, we added this little line right here. We went to the content pane so we could get to the background, and then depending on what index they clicked, we corresponded it to that list of colors that we made up here. So 1 is black, 2 is blue, 3 is red, 4 is white. So that is how we did that, and that is how we made an awesome little program. And look at this. How awesome is that? Seriously. Red, white, and blue. Didn't even notice it. And black, where's that come in? But anyways, thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you next tutorial. What is going on, guys? Welcome to your 72nd Java tutorial. And in this tutorial, I'm going to be teaching you guys how to build a multiple selection list. And in the last tutorial, you guys learned how to build a list with a single selection, or in other words, you can only select one item at a time. But in this tutorial, I'm going to be building a program where there's a list on the left with a bunch of items, and there's a button in the middle, and when you select a bunch of items on the left and click the button, it moves it to the right. So it's going to be a pretty cool tutorial. And actually, the cool thing about this tutorial is all the hard stuff we need to do is already built into Java. So I just need to teach you the methods. So let's go ahead and get started. Make sure you have all your imports right there. I'm going to go ahead and minimize that. And now let's go ahead and start making some variables. We need two lists and a button to start out. So private J list, and the first list I'm just going to name left list, since this is going to be on the left hand side, and I'm going to make another one identical to this, but I'm going to change, can't keep talking, I'm going to name this right list, since this is the list that's going to be on the right hand side. So now we made two variables for left list and a right list, and they're both J list. So now let's go ahead and just make a button, private J button, and I'm just going to name mine move button, because that's what it's going to do. It's going to move the stuff from the left to the right. It's actually going to copy it, but you know, what's the difference? Now, of course, we need an array, or pretty much items to go in our list, and I'm just going to have it private static, and I'm going to have a string because, you know, it's just going to be names, and I'm going to have foods. You can have anything you want, it really doesn't matter, but foods sounds something it'll be interesting. So let's go ahead and type the foods I like, which is of course bacon, and let's see what else. Wings, had some last night, they were amazing. Bone sucking sauce, look it up. Ham, and let's get like two more. Beef, I don't really like beef all that much, but I like the name of beef, and that's the important thing. And the last thing, of course, more bacon. And let's go ahead and end this. So now we have an array called food, and actually name that foods, because I mean it's foods. Bacon, wings, ham, beef, and more bacon. Now I'm going to make sure I got that. And so now we have the four variables we need for this tutorial. Left list, right list, the button, and the array. So now let's go ahead and start, well, I guess we can go ahead and start building our constructor. So public GUI, of course it doesn't take any arguments, and let's go ahead and add a title first called super. Just name it title, and make a layout next. So set layout, and of course nothing new here. We're going to put new flow layout with empty parameters. And now let's go ahead and start editing that list on the left. The first thing we need to do is populate it with the foods. So it's new JList, and anytime you use a JList, it takes the argument of an array. Or in other words, what items do you want to put in it? So we want to put those foods in it. So let's go ahead and put foods in it. Bam, a little too easy. The next thing we're going to want to do to left list is, if I spell it right, is add the visible row count. So set visible row count, and make sure, bam, look at that. How easy is that? So how many of these items do you want to see by default? And I want to see 3 items by default. So now that our list is 5 items, but we can only see 3, what we need to do is add something called a scroll pane that we're going to add later on. But for right now, left list dot set selection mode right there. Too lazy to type it. And let me go ahead and end this statement. And our selection mode, unlike before, it's going to be list selection model, not Mosel, model dot right there, multiple selection. And what this means is, unlike last time where you can only select one thing at a time, with multiple interval selection, using your control and shift keys on your keyboard, you can select multiple items at a time using this. So now the last thing that we need to do to our left list is add it to the screen, and also, like I just told you guys before, we need to add a new J scroll pane right here. And what this allows you to do, if we add the left list eventually, is it allows you to have a list bigger than default viewing, and it pretty much just put a scroll bar on your list. That's what I'm trying to say. It pretty much puts a scroll bar on your list. So now we did our left list. So now all we need to do now is make our move button and right list. So go ahead and put move button and set this equal to new J button, and make sure you have a space in between there. And the parameters for this is the text you want to appear on the button. So I'm just going to have move and a little arrow, just like that, so we know that we're moving from the left to the right. So now we can go ahead and add action listener in other words functionality to this move button. So move button dot add action listener, awesome. And of course this is going to have an inner class because it's a lot easier. So inside your add action listener parameter, just go ahead and make a whole new class called new, not boo, new action listener, just like that. And this class of course doesn't take any parameters, and inside your new action listener inner class we want to have one method, and if you can see by our error it's called action performed. So let's go ahead and add public void action performed. Make sure I spelled it right. P-R-F-O-R-M-E-D. Looks good. And as your parameters for this, just write action event. Bam. This is a little too easy. That's the only problem with it. Now we can finally get to the good stuff of what we want to do. Again, this is all default stuff that you need. That's how they just made the program. But now we get to the custom stuff, what we want to actually do. Well, the first thing we want to do when we click the move button is build our right list. We already built that left list, but the right list depends on what we select in the left list. So go ahead and type right list dot, and the first thing we need to do is set the list data, or set the things we want in the list. So go ahead and set list data, and what this does is it takes an array as its argument, just like just like JList took an array as its argument. Set list data is also going to take an array as its argument to set the list data. So how do we get an array of selected values from a left list? Well, this is another cool thing. Just go ahead and type left list dot get selected values right there. How awesome is that? Get selected values. And what leftList dot get selected values does is whenever you select stuff on the left hand side of your screen or in the left list, it makes an array of those selected values, and that array is going to be passed into set list data, and essentially is going to create a list on the right hand side depending on what you selected on the left hand side. How cool is that? We don't have to make a new method for setlist data. We don't have to make a new method for get selected values. Everything's already built-in method. So that is, it's just awesome. So now that we made this button and we added some functionality to it, let's go ahead and do one last thing, and of course we need to add it to the screen. So let's just go ahead and click add move button, and now our move button is added to the screen. So in the next tutorial we're going to be finishing up this program and actually building a right list, and you'll see what I mean in the next tutorial. So for now, I guess I'll see you next time. Thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you soon. What is going on, guys? Welcome to your 73rd Java tutorial, and in this tutorial we're going to be finishing up our program and actually running it. So in the last tutorial we created a list on the left, we created the move button, and we added some functionality to it. So now we go ahead, and the only thing we have to do is create the list on the right. So let's go ahead and make right list, and just go ahead and set it equal to new JList, and we don't need any parameters for it because by default we want nothing in it. So that's why we don't need any parameters for it right now. You can if you want, but I mean it'll be kind of useful. And hold on, let me itch my ear. Oh yeah, that feels good. You're right in there. Oh, disgusting. So now what we need to do is, since we have nothing in our list by default, then it's not even going to appear on the screen by default, since it doesn't have anything in it. So what we need to do is set a default height and width for it, pretty much. So let's go ahead and see, what do we put up here for 3? Okay, what we need to do is first take that right list, and to make sure it appears on the screen by default, what we need to do first is, get out of my way, set visible row count, and I'm going to set this equal to 3 because our other one was set to 3 and I just want some consistency. So next I'm going to take that right list, and we need to set fixed cell height and width. So set fixed cell, let's do width first. That only makes sense. We'll set a width of like 100, and do the same thing for height. Right list set fixed. Crap, my default thing. Height, and we'll set this equal to like 15 or something like that. And this should be enough to hold our values. If it's not, we'll go back and tweak it a little bit, but oh well. And the last thing we have to do aside from this is take that right list, and we need to set the selection mode like before. So set selection, probably can copy this from up there, but too lazy to. Set the selection mode. Make sure I didn't write get selection mode. And what this is going to do, list selection model dot, and we're going to write, wow, how convenient is that, multiple interval selection. So then once I type right list and type this right, what this is going to do is allow you to select multiple items from the right hand side, and I know you guys can't see that. Multiple interval selection, so just like that. Now that we have our right list made, the only thing we need to do is add it to the screen. So let's go ahead and add new J scroll pane. So we want a scroll bar in this one too. Right list. So now we have everything added to our screen, and our program is basically built right here. So let's go ahead and in our main, I already have this stuff from the last tutorials. Let's go ahead and run this and see what we got. Well, I resized my window a little weird, but we can always change that by setting the size right here, but I'm too lazy for now. So as you can see, the title is title, and now unlike before where we can select single things, if I hold down the shift key on my keyboard, look at this, click, and now I get a multiple selection. Or if I hold down control on my keyboard, I get that selection where you can select like every other one, or if you want to deselect something, just click it again, and now if you move it, you get bacon, more bacon, or if we want bacon, wings, and ham, I'm going to click bacon, hold down shift, click ham, and move, and we get bacon, wings, and ham. And of course, if we want everything, let's go ahead and just select that, move, and now we got everything right there. So that is pretty much the program of using a multiple interval selection, or in other words, multiple selection list. And one quick time how this program works, we pretty much made variables right here in an array. We took that array and passed it into left list, so left list will have something to display. We set the visible row count, we made it so you can select multiple things, and we also made a scroll bar on the left list. Then we got to the move button. We did all this default stuff, and we also did this cool stuff, set list data of the right list automatically depending on what you select in the left list. That's why whenever we click move, it first looked what we selected in the left list, and depending on what we selected, that's what it put in the right list. So this is how you do that using set list data in the get selected values method. We added that button to the screen, and then what we did is we made a new right list that was empty by default. And since it was empty by default, it wouldn't display if we didn't give it a height and width. And now we made that list so you could select multiple things in it even though you didn't really need to. And last but not least, we added the right to the screen, so everything was added to the screen, and it was good to go, and it was good to run. So that is our final program using multiple selection lists. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Oh, I got the hiccups now. So thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you next tutorial. What is going on, everyone? Welcome to your 74th Java tutorial, and in this tutorial we're going to be going over something called mouse event handling. Now, we already went over stuff like list and what happens or what we want the program to do if the user clicks a button or something, but we didn't go over what they would do if they like press the mouse or click it, or if they drag the mouse. In this program we can respond to mouse events that the user does, just like I just talked about, like if they click it or if they move it and stuff like that. So let's go ahead and get started, and then well, once I'm done with this program, you'll understand how to respond to users' mouse events. So the first thing we need to do is import a bunch of stuff. As you can see, I got rid of everything from my other tutorial. So let's go ahead and import java.awt let's go ahead and just import all of them. And this is going to import stuff like colors, border layouts, and well, stuff like that. Next we want to import java.awt.event and all of those, and these are pretty much our mouse events. And lastly, what we want to import is import javax.swing.all of those. So now we got all the imports we need, I believe. If not, we'll import them later, but I'm pretty sure that's all. So after this, let's just go ahead and get rid of that ticker and make two variables. We're going to have two things in our window. So we're going to have a private variable jpanel, and actually that needs to be jpanel, and just name this like mouse. There we go. I'll get it eventually. Mouse panel, and this is gonna pretty much be the area where you can like click and move your cursor around. So it's pretty much just gonna be a big white box. And we're gonna have another variable to hold another piece of our window, and that's JLabel, and just set this equal to like status bar. So here's what our window is going to look. Our window is going to look like. It's going to have a big empty space, and that's going to be called the mouse panel. And this is where we can test out all our mouse events like click, drag, release. And we're going to have a status bar at the bottom. And when we click, we want the status bar to say you clicked. When we drag, we want to have the status bar say you are dragging. But you know, we got to program all that. So let's go ahead and get to it. So after we got our two variables, we can go ahead and make our constructor, which is pretty much going to construct our window. So name it public, whatever you name your class. I name mine GUI. It doesn't take any parameters because it's constructor. I mean, come on, seriously. We're not going to pass any constructors or parameters into it. And then we did super to, of course, change the title of it, because that is the constructor of the super class. JFrame changes the title. In other words, just put super and put title whatever you want. Now we pretty much got a window with a title bar on it. Not very exciting. So let's go ahead and change that mouse panel and actually make it something. And we will set this equal to new jpanel. So now we actually set it equal to something so we can use it now. So now let's do something else with it. Something a little more exciting. Take that mouse panel and let's go ahead and set the background color using the built-in method set background. And do you put, nope, you don't put color. And as the arguments, it takes a color. So go ahead and put color white. So we're going to put this at white default, but don't worry, we're going to be changing it to something more exciting later on. And the last thing we need to do is, of course, add this to the screen. So go ahead and add mouse panel. But we don't want to do that. If you can notice, we didn't have a flow layout like we did last time. So for this layout, go ahead and put border layout dot center. And this is just going to make it appear in the center of the screen and fill up all the empty space. And we'll be going over layouts later on, so you guys probably don't know what this means yet, but trust me, you will in a little bit. So now we have on our window, which is this, we have a title, which is the title bar, and we have pretty much a background. Not very exciting. So let's go ahead and add that status bar we talked about right here. So go ahead and type in status bar, and we will set this, I spelled that right, it always underlines it like I spelled it wrong or something, and we will set this equal to new JLabel. Remember, don't get this confused, JPanel, JLabel. Your status bar is JLabel, and just set it to and just put default, because that's what's going to happen by default. So now we have a status bar that says default by default. How clever is that? So now let's just go ahead and add it to the screen. We'll be changing it later with the mouse events, but for now we just want to add it to the screen. Get it done with. Status bar, and for this, border layout south. And this means, for real simply, it's going to appear at the bottom of the screen. So it's a little more than that when you learn about layouts, but for now, trust me, just means middle of the screen, fill up on all the empty space, appear at the bottom of the screen. Simple enough. And if you couldn't guess, it has north, south, east, west, and center. So anyways, let's talk about something a little more useful. In order to use our mouse events like mouse clicked, mouse pressed, we need to make a new handling class to handle these events. So I'm gonna make a class declaration right now, even though we didn't make the class yet. So in the future, we're gonna make a class called handler class, and I'm gonna make my object called like handler something easy, and of course we're gonna set it equal to new handler class. Gotta make sure I don't type anything wrong there. So now, there we go. Make sure they're spelled the same. That's how I check. If you're using Eclipse, and if you like click one thing, it'll highlight everything else. I mean, just a neat little tip. Because if you're like, alright, why am I getting an error in here and not here? Just click it once. Oh, it's not highlighted. They're spelled different. Bam. So anyways, what we want to do is we're going to add 2 listeners because we're going to be implementing from 2 different classes. There are 2 different types of ways, or there are pretty much 2 different types of mouse events. The first set of mouse events is like anything that you can do when the mouse is still, and these include press, clicked, release, and there are 2 other ones that are kind of funky called entered and exit, which is enter the space and exit the space. But the next class we're going to implement from is what you can do while the mouse is moving. And you can of course move the mouse, or if you hold down the mouse, it's called dragging the mouse. So let's go ahead and add 2 listeners right here. I sound like what's that guy from politics? Yeah, whatever he is. That's what I just sounded like. So mouse panel dot add mouse listener. How easy is that? Handler. So of course add mouse listener waits and it takes an object as its parameter, so that's why we passed in handler. And do it again. Mouse panel dot add, oh, what's this called? Mouse motion listener, and of course this takes handler too. So now we're getting error here because we didn't build the class yet, which we're going to do in the next tutorial. But now let me go over this real quick. We imported everything we need because we needed some stuff. We extended JFrame, which allowed us to build windows. We made 2 things in our windows, a panel and a status bar. Then we set the title of our window, and then we pretty much just set the color or the background, added it to the window. We made a status bar, added that to the window at the bottom, and then we made this new handler class with the object handler. And we need to make an object because these 2 built-in methods that wait for mouse events, they take an object as their parameters. So in the next tutorial, we're actually going to be going over some of these mouse events, such as what happens when you click the mouse, and we're going to be adding some functionality to it. And if we have time, we'll probably run it, but we might not. So thank you guys for watching now. Cannot wait to build this next class in the next tutorial. So again, thank you. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you next time. What is going on, guys? Welcome to your 75th Java tutorial, and in this tutorial we're going to be going over how to handle those mouse events. So in the first tutorial we built a window. So let's go ahead and go outside our constructor right here, and we want to make a new class. And let's go ahead and make it private class, and you got to name it whatever you named it up here. So I named mine handler class. And then what we want to do is implement from 2 other classes. So implements mouse listener, and it also implements mouse motion listener. So hopefully those errors go away, and they did. So now what implement means is we have to use every method that was in the class mouse listener, and there are 5 methods in this, and mouse motion listener, and there are 2 methods in this. So what Java did is they put methods inside mouse listener and mouse motion listener to automatically detect mouse events. So whenever you move your mouse, it's going to be registered in an object called an event. So let's go ahead and I'll just start building these methods, and you'll see exactly what happens. So the first methods we need to implement are those 5 methods from mouse listener, and these are mouse press, mouse clicked, mouse released, mouse entered, and mouse exited. And I'm going to tell you guys what these do when I go through them, but for now let's go ahead and build our first one. So public void mouse clicked, and what this does it is whenever you click down the mouse. And what this means, and I know you guys probably saying, alright, I know what click means. When you press and release the mouse, really click, really quick. Wow, embarrassing. That is a click. Now a mouse press and a mouse release are two different things, so you know, maybe you guys didn't know what click meant after all. But this is what Java defines a click as, so and all of these parameters are going to take something called this mouse event. So you might as well just go ahead and copy that and copy that like that, because we're going to be using it a lot later on. So now whatever we type in here is finally what we want to happen when the mouse gets clicked. So let's go ahead and take that status bar, and we want to change the text on it. So status bar dot set text, and what do we want to set the text equal to? Well, let's just go ahead and put let's put string format, and in our format parameters it takes two parameters itself, and the first one is clicked at %d, %d. So it's going to say clicked at 2 coordinates, and Java also has 2 coordinates based on this event right here. Why do you have this event? Because it registers the event. Like when you click, it decides where it clicked, and you can get to the locations by clicking event get x, and also you guys probably can't see this. Is that a little better? And also event dot get y with empty parameters. So now whenever you click this, you get the x coordinate and the y coordinate of where the event happened, and you guys can see this later on, but for now let's go to the next event. The next ones will be a lot easier. I just wanted to demonstrate that you can get the x coordinate and get the y coordinate in one of them, but in the rest of the methods I'm going to make them real simple. So we made something that happens when the mouse is clicked, but we need to implement the rest of the functionality. And the second one that we need to implement is public void mouse released. And this is what happens when you release that mouse button. So actually, let's go, the second one is mouse pressed, that people usually do. So let's go ahead, and mouse pressed is what happens when you press down that mouse button. So go ahead and throw your mouse event parameters in there. And for the body, let's just go ahead and put something like status bar dot set text. This is going to change the text on our status bar to like you pressed down the mouse. So now this is what happens, the status bar is going to pop up this text whenever we press down the mouse. And now we can get the public void mouse released. And this is the event of when the mouse releases, or after you press it down you let go of the button. So this is a lot easier to see with our program actually. So let's just go ahead and copy this now because we are too lazy, and it's gonna say mouse release, so you release the button. So now we have 3 methods that we implemented. What happens when you click the mouse, what happens when you press and release the mouse, and believe it or not, these are actually 3 separate things. I know you think press and release is the same thing as clicking, but trust me, to Java it isn't. So now in this class there are 2 other methods that we need to implement. Public void mouse entered, and what this is going to take is of course our mouse event. First of all, can't forget that. Paste that baby right there. That's what I'm talking about. And what mouse entered means is this is the event when the mouse enters the area, and our area is of course where are you? Mouse panel right here. So this is what's going to happen whenever the mouse enters the mouse panel. So remember, up here we put it at white by default. So now let's go ahead and change that. Actually, the first thing we can do is put status bar dot set the text to something like you know, you enter the area. Not bad. And now let's go ahead and change the color of our mouse panel. So mouse panel dot set background, not background, set background. And what do we want to set it to when the mouse enters? Just put something noticeable, color dot red or something like that. I mean, red's pretty noticeable. Come on. So of course you're wondering, all right, you have a mouse entered method. Something tells me that you're probably going to have a mouse exited method as well. Well, if you guessed that, then you would be correct. So public void mouse exited. Make sure I didn't spell excited. I do that sometimes because I myself get excited about this method sometimes. So, you know, it happens. So, go ahead and type mouse event, nothing new. So, what this happens whenever the mouse exits the window, pretty much, in essence. So, the first thing we want to do is set status bar, set text, and we put the mouse has left the window. Bam, pretty much. Make sure you spell the wrong. Make sure you put he instead, because I'm too lazy to fix it. Although I easily could have just fixed it right there. Anyways, enough of that. So now let's take that mouse panel, and whenever the mouse is in the window, it's going to be red. So whenever we exit the window, let's go ahead and set background. We'll just set this to I guess white again. I mean, why not? Make sure we don't got any errors, and we didn't. So all of these 5 methods right here, these are the mouse listener events. But again, we implemented for mouse listener and mouse motion listener. Lucky for us, mouse listener has 5 methods, which we already did, and mouse motion listener, which is the ones that the methods are mouse dragged and mouse moved, it only has 2. So this one's going to be a lot easier. So in the next tutorial, we're going to finish up building this program, and all we have to do is implement these 2 methods, mouse motion listener, which are, like I said, dragged and moved. And once we do that, we can finally run our program and see what it does. And it's going to be awesome. It's going to be amazing. But for now, thank you guys for sticking with me. Thank you for learning Java with me. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel, and I will see you next tutorial. What is going on, everyone? Welcome to your 76th Java tutorial. And in this tutorial, we're going to be finishing up that program that lets us do mouse events, and well, that's pretty much it. So in case you can't tell right here, we implemented from 2 different interfaces, which are pretty much just a class in essence. The mouse listener, and we did the 5 methods necessary for that, but we implemented from this other one too, mouse motion listener, and these are pretty much, like you can see, the motions of the mouse. So when you move the mouse like this, or click and hold down and drag, that's what registers these events. So these are pretty useful for like drawing programs and stuff like that. So let's go ahead and implement the methods right now. So public, I'm gonna make a little comment. These are mouse motion events. So not just the typical mouse, what do they call it? Mouse listener or whatever. So the first method we need to make is called mouse drag. So public void mouse dragged. I always heard it was drug, like dig, dug, drag. Anyways, just talking to myself here. So let's go ahead and put mouse event, nothing new here. And for the body, what do we want to do when they drag the mouse? Well, let's go ahead and there's nothing really we can do except change the status bar dot set text, and we'll set it equal to something like, put that back. Come on, Haas. You are dragging the mouse. How original is that? I know. It's the most creative thing I can come up with. But hey, I'm not that creative. That's what my therapist told me. So I'm just going to go with that. So after that, what we need to do is have mouse moved. And what mouse moved does is called when you move the mouse without clicking any buttons. Just like I'm moving the mouse right here and I'm not clicking any buttons. So mouse dragged is when you hold down a button, but public void mouse moved is not holding down any buttons. So let's go ahead and type mouse event, and in our body, what do we want to put? Status bar dot set text, And let's go ahead and just put something like you move the mouse. So now we got M-O-U-S-E-O. Of course, that's how you spell mouse. So now we got all of our methods that we needed to implement, since we implemented from mouse listener and mouse motion listener. So now we can go ahead and run this program, and evidently it doesn't see one of these things is spelled wrong. H-A-N-D-L-E or C-L-A-S-S. H-A-N-D. Oh, there we go. Make sure your capitalization does matter. It's case sensitive in Java, as you just saw. So now let's go ahead and run this program right here, and I'll show you guys what happens if we don't got any errors. It'll pop up, trust me. So here is our window by default. It has a title bar at the top, and here's a status bar down here, and here's our mouse panel. And so the first thing we see is, well, let me go through each of these methods. Look at the status bar down here. I'm going to press down or hold down the mouse button, and it says you pressed down the mouse button. Now when I release it, it says I clicked at that coordinate, because when you press down and you release it real quick, it's a click. So if you're saying, alright, if I press down and release it, that's a click. How do I get this to the release method? Well, if you click it and drag it and let it go, that's the one that says you release the button. So if you click down and release in the same spot, it's a click. If you click down and drag it and release it, it says you release the button. So now what do we have? We have mouse pressed, mouse clicked, mouse released. We also have mouse entered. As you can see, as I'm entering it, it's changing red. As I'm exiting it, the mouse has left the window, it's changing white. And lastly, I have you move the mouse. And if I hold down my button, look, I'm clicking down the button and dragging, it says you are dragging the mouse. So now let me talk through each of these methods. You guys should know what all this means, how to create the window by now if you've been watching my tutorials. And let me talk through each one of these. Remember, well, I might as well just run that again so I can bring it up. Bring it right there. So remember when it said mouse clicked, it set the text equal to the two coordinates, %d, which was event get x and get y. And I know you guys can't see get y, but trust me. So look at this. Clicked at 10:10:65. Clicked at 30:46. So that is pretty much what it means. And for your information, the x is left to right and the y is top to bottom. It starts at 0, 0 right here, and it increases the most right here. Look, 279, 141. So that is what click does. The mouse pressed is pretty much taking it right here, and when you pressed it down, that's why we were able to get this text. You press down the mouse. Mouse released. Let me make sure I can't move my mouse. You release the button. So that's why we're able when we let go of our mouse button. And of course, when we enter the area, it not only says you enter the area for a short bit of time, but it also changes the color to red. Look at this. Not in, not in. Oh, I entered. I didn't come in yet. Oh, I just entered again. It's red. So now, what else did we do? Exited is white. It's the same thing. And the last one is dragged, which is holding your mouse button down. That way, we were able to set the status bar to you are dragging the mouse, and moving it without holding it down, you move the mouse. Look at that. So now, what do we know how to learn in Java? In this little program that took quite a little ways to build, we learned how to respond to the user's mouse events. So now we know how to respond to the keyboard events using scanner and the other stuff we learned in that tutorial, and also their mouse events right now. So we can pretty much start building some pretty cool programs using, graphics and stuff like that. But for the next tutorial, I'm probably going to be teaching you about layouts, how to make super cool windows with buttons right where you want them, and more stuff like that. But for now, thank you guys for watching my mouse event handling tutorial. I hope you learned a little something. Of course, not too much, because come on, why would you want to learn a lot? Learning, not that fun. So again, thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel. So glad you're subscribers, so glad. Thank you for your views. Don't forget to subscribe again, and I will see you next tutorial. What is going on, guys? Welcome to your 77th Java tutorial. And in this tutorial, we're going to be learning about something called adapter classes. Now in the last tutorial, when we implemented from the interface like mouse listener and mouse motion listener, we had to implement 7 different methods, and those are kind of time consuming, and sometimes you don't always want your program to detect all of those different methods. Sometimes you only want your program to be able to tell when a user clicks something instead of drag, release, move. You only need one of those. So what Java did is, in order to kind of save you some time, they made something called an adapter class. And what an adapter class does is it already implements an interface, and it overrides it with a method body that is pretty much a blank body, or pretty much a body that does nothing. And you're saying, alright, what's the point of that? Well, in that way, when you inherit from an adapter class, you only have to override the methods that you need. So it's pretty cool in the sense that you don't have to override all of those 7 time-consuming methods like we did before. You only have to override the ones that you're going to use, and the rest, whenever you do them, they just don't do anything at all, just like we wanted them to. So let me go ahead and show you guys what I'm talking about. I'm going to make 2 variables for our program. Again, get all your imports right here. And the first thing, they're both going to be private variables. I'm going to put string in details. And what this program is going to do is it's pretty much just going to say how many times, well, you'll see what it does. But pretty much this details is going to tell what's going to be displayed in the status bar. So that's all you need to know for now. Private J label, and just put status bar or whatever you named it last time. And now we got 2 private variables. The status bar and the details is pretty much going to be the text that's going to appear in your status bar. So now we can go ahead and build our constructor, which is public GUI. It's not going to take any parameters, and for the body, let's go ahead and add a title, super title, since you should always have a title. Get that out of there. We'll name it Toodle. I mean, why not? Might as well. Next, we can go ahead and build our status bar, which is the only thing we're really going to want to appear in the window. So, wow, I really messed that up. Status bar, and set equal to new J label, and just have the text by default. Just put this is default. It's just going to be the first thing that appears. After we start doing the stuff, this is going to disappear. But now let's go ahead and add this to the window. We'll put add status bar, and of course go ahead and put like border layout dot south. And now, there we go. It'll appear at the bottom of the screen if you put south. We'll be going over that later. And now we need to add, of course, the mouse listener. Just like that, add mouse listener. And the parameter it takes here is an object of the class we're going to build. And we're going to be building a new class called new mouse class. And don't forget your empty parameters for that. So make sure we didn't mess. Oh, I know we're getting an error because we didn't build the class yet. So let's go ahead and create a class called mouse class. And what this mouse class is, well, let's just go ahead and private class mouse class extends. So we need to build a mouse class because that's what the parameter it took. In our class, we're going to pretty much define how to handle these mouse events, and we want it to extend mouse adapter. In this adapter class that we're extending from, this is the class that's built into Java already, so this can be custom whatever you named, but this has to mean mouse adapter. You have to type it just like that. And again, this adapter class is going to allow you to overwrite only the methods that you need to overwrite. So let's go ahead and first, the only thing we're going to want to be working with is public void mouse clicked. That's the only thing we care about, when they click. We don't care when they drag or anything else like that. So put mouse event. Oh my god, can I not type? I mean, seriously. Mouse event, and let's go ahead and type what do we want to happen when they click the mouse. Well, let's go ahead and take those details right up here that we're going to have and put details, set it equal to string dot format. And let's go ahead and put something that takes 2 arguments. Put you clicked %d. So it's going to say you clicked %d, and for %d, what we want to do is take that event, which is pretty much means when we click, and put get click count, just like that. Bam, already filled it in for us. So it's going to say you clicked 5, 6, 18, whatever. Doesn't fill in the end yet. So now we're going to have to make an if statement, and we're going to have 3 parameters to finish this detail variable. So if event, and here's another kind of confusing thing, dot is meta down, and if you're saying, alright, what the heck is meta down and what's it mean? Well, whenever you're building a Java program, you don't really know what kind of mouse the user is using. There's 3 kind of main mouses. There's a 1-button mouse like on the Mac, a 2-button, which is like old classic, or a 3-button mouse, and the 3rd button is that scroll wheel. So in order to distinguish the types of buttons that they have, you just can't assume that all your users are using the same one. So if you ever use the Mac, then how they make up for this the right mouse button is they have something called meta, which is called the command or Apple key, that they can hold down, and when they click the mouse it simulates the right mouse button, or they can hold the Alt key, and when they click the Alt key and click their mouse it simulates the Alt is the center mouse button. So that is how you can tell. For now, when we click the right mouse button it's going to work perfectly, but this pretty much is just for people who use special like 1-button or 2-button mouses. If you have a 3-button mouse, then this is pretty much what it does. So if meta button is down, or is meta down, take your details, and I know I'm probably just going to explain it a lot easier just by showing you what the program is, but add to the end of that details variable, so you clicked 5, we'll say for example, and then go ahead and what do we want to append? Alright, there we go. With right mouse button. So if meta is down, which is mean if they click the right mouse button or if they hold down that meta key, it's going to say with the right mouse button. Else if what else do we want to test? Event is alt down, just like that. Let's go ahead and first put that back, and details plus equals with center mouse button. And the cool thing about this, else by default you don't have to test anything because you know it's just a regular click. Down with left mouse button. So that's how you distinguish between the right, the center, and the left mouse button for different types of mice. And I spelled details wrong, and now I spelled it right. So that's all we have to do. So now we have a variable called details, and it's a string. It starts with you clicked and it says a number and says with the right mouse button either, why did I put either? Why didn't I just put with? Embarrassing. And then I pretty much, this is the beginning and one of these is the end of the string, and now all we have to do is add this to the screen. So put status bar set text, and for the text we're just going to write that details variable. So the status bar is going to set equal to the details variable, and now we can go ahead and run it and I can show you guys what it does. So it says this is default, which you put that by default, and I'm going to go ahead and click my left mouse button now. Look, click 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then if you move it and click your center, look what happens. Center, center, clicking with my center, or in other words my scroll wheel, and then go ahead and click with your right. And if you go ahead and move this, then it's actually a new event. So if you want to make your things go up, you got to stay in the same place. If you're moving it, then it actually is a move event, so that's why it resets. But that's your basics of how to distinguish between the right, the center, and left, and also how to use a mouse adapter class to only overwrite the methods that you want. Again, we only overwrote one method, and we didn't have to overwrite all 7 for our program to work, so that's the power of a mouse adapter class. But for now, thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you next time.
What is going on, everybody? It is Bucky, and I am kind of sick right now, so if I sound a little stuffy or I blow my nose during this tutorial, then I guess you guys are just going to have to deal with it. But I'm going to teach you some Java in the meantime, so let's go ahead and get started. Actually, we took a break from GUIs for the next couple of tutorials. I'm going to be teaching you something about files. Now, you can create and modify files in Java just like most other programming languages. If you guys are saying, alright, what exactly is a file useful for? I'll give you guys a quick 1-2 of the main thing it's useful for. So far, we created computer programs that use like variables and stuff like that, like store the number 5 in X, or store like the name Bucky in Y or something like that. But once they end their program, then all of these variables and methods are all gone. So if we want to like keep it in a database, then we actually need to like keep it in a text file, so that way when they run the program again, then all their information is there, and they don't, it's not just like a program that you can run once and it forgets about it. That way it can store your information on the computer, then when you run your program again, we can automatically load the values and stuff and get them again. So we'll be going over, we'll actually be building a program later on, but for now, let me get typing some code before I lose you guys. So let's go ahead and import the file class. So java.io.file, or you can import everything, but that's good enough. And what the file class does is, this is real simple. It doesn't create files or anything. All this class does is give you info about files, like whether it exists. It has a couple things like length, the path, the parent, stuff like that. Right now what we're going to be doing is testing whether a file exists on our computer, and this is useful for things like if you're creating a program to make a file for the first time. If it already exists, you don't want to create one again, or else it's going to delete it. So you want to see if it's there first, and then if it's there, you can like write to it. If it's not there, then you can create it. So simple enough. What you do is type the file class. We'll name it X. You can name it whatever you want. And then type new file, and what this does is the constructor takes the path of the file. So I actually know that I have a file in C, and you actually have to do this. Capitalize your directory, whatever it is, and if you do, I'll show you guys. Test is in the directory, and I have a file name greg.txt right there. So normally this would work, and that's a valid path name. But the thing is, when we're working with strings, that little backslash is the escape character. So this is, whenever you put this is going to try to escape this T and put a tab in G and stuff like this. So what we need to do when we're working with path names in Windows is actually need to put 2 backslashes like this. And when we do this, it views this as only 1 backslash, because remember, whenever we do backslash with a string, then it's going to try to escape it, because that's just how Windows is. So actually, whenever you do path names, do 2 backslashes if you're working with Windows. If you're working with Linux, I think it's a front slash, but I'm not sure. So now that we have this file that is stored in the variable X, we can do a couple things to it, and what we're going to be doing in this tutorial is simply check if it exists. So along with many of the built-in methods, we can do if X, what we just did, EX, and we'll just shortcut it right there. If X exists, and if we hover over this, it says test whether the file or directory pretty much exists. So if greg.txt exists, then what do we want to do? Let's go stuffy nose. System out print line, and we can print something like we can actually have x.getName, and that'll be pretty cool, and we'll just add something like exist, so it'll be like greg.txt exist. Or if it doesn't, we'll insert a file that doesn't exist later, so I can tell you guys what it does. And system out print line, and we'll say this thing doesn't exist, and make sure you almost type everything wrong, so which I did. So now we can go ahead and run this program and see what we get. It says greg.txt exists, and I probably should put a space right there, but I didn't. And what is going on is this. If you look at my computer right here, and you go to C test, and this is a C, and the test is right here, a file named greg.txt does exist. But what if you had a file name in here like like that? See, that's what I could think of off the top of my head. If you run this and click OK, it's going to say this thing doesn't exist. So that is how you can pretty much look for files in their existence using the file name and the exist properties, and I also taught you another one, the get name, pretty much to get the name of it. And that's a quick cute little tutorial, and let's see if there's anything else I didn't cover. And that's pretty much it for this tutorial. And in the next tutorial I'm actually going to show you guys, alright, we already tested if it existed or not. If a file doesn't exist, then how do we create one? I mean, of course we can go to our computer right here and create a file like this, but we want to create one in Java programming language, so that's what I'm going to be teaching you in the next tutorial. So for now, thank you guys for watching. Study this, and again, review one more time. You create an object from the file class, and as this constructor, it takes the path name of the file. And remember, when you're working with strings, you got to escape the backslashes. Then you test whether it exists. If it does exist, run load code to do anything, and if it doesn't exist, then you usually in here you want to write code to create the file. But for now, I just want to write a little prompt saying this thing doesn't exist. So thank you guys for watching. I hope you learned a little something. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you next time. What is going on, everyone? Welcome to your 79th Java tutorial. And in this tutorial, I'm going to show you guys a real quick way on how to create files using Java. So pretty much, if you don't have a file created, and we could check for a file using what we learned in the last tutorial, then we usually want to run a program like I'm going to be teaching you today, or in this tutorial, to create a file. So the first thing we need to do is import java.util, and just go ahead and import everything from there. And now let's go ahead, and the first thing we need to do is build a formatter variable. So we need to make a final variable, formatter type X, and you can name it whatever you want. I just name everything X because I'm too lazy to type anything that's more than one letter. But I'm going to name mine X, and what this is going to do, a formatter variable pretty much outputs strings to a file, and it's pretty much like printf, but instead of printing to the screen, you're printing to a file. So this pretty much outputs a string. And let's go ahead, and I didn't teach you guys about exception handling, but I'm gonna have to do some right now. I'll give you guys the quick one too. You pretty much, in exception handling, you write try, and then you write what do you want to try. And what we want to try is this. We want to set X equal to new formatter, like that. And this is pretty much the same thing as instantiating the variable in the same line, but we want to try to do it down here. And as the constructor for this is pretty much the same thing as putting final formatter X equals new formatter. And again, as a constructor, it takes the path of the file. So what file do we want to output to? Well, I'm going to make a file called like fred.txt. And here's the thing. If there is no file to output to, then it automatically creates a file on your computer for you. So that is how you can create files on your computer using formatter. So again, let's go ahead, and now that we created a file, we want something to show up in the command prompt to tell us that we did it. So system out println, and let's go ahead and put you created a file. So now if we try this and it's successful, then this stuff is going to happen. However, if we get an error, then, and again, I'll be going over this try and catch later, so don't worry too much if you don't understand it. However, if you get an error, and an error and an exception is the exact same thing. They just had to name it exception because they had to be different. If you get an error, then what do you want to happen? System out println you got an error. So this is pretty much your own way of making custom errors. So you know, if we had an error before, then our program would just start running and we would get a bunch of error messages on our command prompt. But this is a way, if you get an error running your program, that your program doesn't just automatically shut down, and you can actually handle those errors, aka exceptions. Why they name them exceptions, I don't know, it's annoying, but they did it. So I know I didn't teach you guys about try and catch yet, but it's pretty much try this code. If you get an error, do this. Bam, you just learned it in like half a second. So what we're gonna do is, let me show you guys right here. On my computer, if I search in here and I search for Fred, I don't have anything on my computer named Fred or anything like this. But now we're gonna run this program right here, and it says you crested a file, and I mean to put created, but I didn't. Okay, make fun of me, big deal. So did we create a file? I mean, all we're getting is this command prompt right here. I don't believe you created a file, Bucky. Well, let's go ahead in this computer right here and search again, and now let's search for Fred and make sure you only have 1D, and bam, look at this. We now have a file created. If we click on the properties, it's created C users Greg workspace Bucky, and that is pretty much right here. And if you're working with Eclipse, you can highlight Bucky, click refresh, and under your JRE systems library you get that Fred text. And I know I just talked real fast and you guys didn't really comprehend that probably, but I should probably slow it down. Pretty much what I'm saying, when you create a file, you created it in whatever directory your program ran from. So if you have this Java program right in your hard drive, then it's going to create this text file right on your hard drive. If you run this Java program from a folder called like apples or something, then it's going to create this text file in a folder called apples. And you can also make an absolute path like this, and you know, well, you guys know how to make absolute paths from last tutorial, to create that file where you want it, like in a folder or something. But again, to recap one more time, we use this final formatter x variable, and what this did is pretty much stored this formatter. Well, it just pretty much created a variable. And again, the formatter is pretty much a way of putting strings into a file, or pretty much writing stuff in a file. So right now our file is empty, but we're going to be putting stuff in it later. And again, if it couldn't find the file, then it created it, and that's why it created it. And again, if we made an error, then Java makes us handle it in some way. So that's why I need to teach you guys about try and catch. You can catch different types of errors, like if a user tries to divide by 0, or if they are supposed to input a number and they actually input letters or something, then those are the kind of errors you usually want to catch. And you usually want to send them a message like, hey idiot, input a number, not a letter. But for now, we'll just output you got an error. So that is your real quick tutorial on how to create files. We'll actually be clearing this up, and it'll make sense when we create a program. But and also your real quick tutorial on exception handling, try and catch. So thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. If you're a little confused, don't worry, I'll clear things up for you in the next couple tutorials. But again, thank you, don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. What is going on, guys? It is Bucky, and welcome to your 80th Java tutorial. In this tutorial, I'm going to teach you guys how to add data to your files. So in the last tutorial, we pretty much learned how to create an empty file. Not that useful, so let's go ahead and put something in it in this tutorial. And hold on one second, I got an itch in my ear. Oh, that felt good, I got it. Alright, so let's go ahead and import a couple things. We need to import java.io, and let's go ahead and import everything from there. And as you can see, I made a separate class outside my main class, and I just named it create file because that's what we're going to be doing, creating files. That's why I named it that. So next, let's go ahead and put java.lang. We need some crap from in there. And lastly, let's go ahead and import java.util. Now, I'm not exactly sure what we're going to be building in this tutorial, but this should cover everything. So without further ado, let me think, what do I want to do first? Well, the first thing we need to do is do a private formatter variable, and I'm going to name an X as usual. And what this is going to do is hold a formatter object. And let's go ahead and make a method to pretty much create and open a file. So let's go ahead and put public void, and we'll just name it open file. You can name it whatever you want. It doesn't take any parameters because it's just going to open a file. Now in this method, what we want to do, we got to have our try and catch block like always. So let's go ahead and try and set X equal to new formatter object, and go ahead and write a file name. Make sure you write one that you don't already have a file, or else you're going to overwrite it. So I don't have a file called like Chinese.txt. You probably don't either, so you can use that. So go ahead and try and set this file equal to X. If you can't, let's just go ahead and catch an exception. So catch exception E, and this pretty much means if you get an error, what do you want to do? Let's do system out print line. Just put you have an error. Error? No, error. There we go. Alright, so now whenever we call this method open file, it's pretty much just gonna set X equal to this file. It's pretty much just gonna give us a file so we can use. So now we have a file that we can use. So what do we want to do to that? Well, we want to add a record to it. So let's go ahead and put public void add records, and let's go ahead, and this isn't going to take any parameters either. And adding records is the easiest thing in the world. All you need to do is put the file you want added to, which is X, because remember we set equal to Chinese.txt, and what you do is the method is format, and this pretty much is like printf for files. And now again, how familiar is this? The format and the arguments. So for the format, let's insert 3 strings. The first one, say we're making like a user account. The first one will be the ID number, so we'll put like 20. It's my favorite number. And the second one will be my first name, which is Bucky. And the third piece of data will be Roberts, which is my last name. So that looks good right there. So now what this is going to do is insert 3 elements in the same line. It's going to say 20 Bucky Roberts. It's going to insert that in our file whenever we call this method add records. And the last thing that we want to do is write a method to close the file. So go ahead and write public void close file, or name it whatever you want, but that's pretty easy to remember. And why do we need to put, well, I'll show you guys what the thing is. X close, and close is built-in method, so that's why we can use this. And that's why we needed to include all these, so we can use this close method. But now let me tell you guys why we need to close this file. It's pretty much like a housekeeping thing. Whenever we exit our program, Windows usually, and I say usually, closes our file from writing, so nothing else can write in it. But sometimes, remember, every operating system is different. Sometimes, depending on your program, it can leave the file open, it can lead to some errors. So you always want to close your files. It's good programming, you always want to do it. I mean, you can probably get away with not doing it, but if you ever get a job as a Java programmer, they are going to be PO'd at you if you forget to close your files. It's probably going to cause some errors later down the road. So we're pretty much, recap, I'm talking about something different now. We pretty much got 3 methods in here. We need to open the file, we need to add some records into it, and then we need to close the file because we're done with it. We don't want anyone else messing with it. So go ahead and in your main, or whatever your main method is, just go ahead and, well, we don't need to include anything. But what we do need is to create an object, and I'll name my class create file. So create file, I'm just going to name it like G or something. New create file, doesn't take any parameters, we didn't make a constructor. And remember, we have 3 methods we built. Open file, right there. G, what do we name it? Add records, right there. And so now we opened the file, we added the records, and now what we need to do is close that file because we're done with it. And now once we go ahead and run this program, nothing happens, but what it did is created a file on our computer. So if we highlight source, or actually Bucky, and put file refresh, it's pretty much going to refresh our computer. So now you see we get this Chinese.txt file that we just created. And the cool thing about Eclipse is it actually a text editor as well. So double click this file and it'll show you what's in your file. And that is 20 Bucky Roberts. This one is just the line number, don't mind that. That isn't actually in the file. So in this text file we have 20 Bucky Roberts. So now let's recap one last time what we did. In createFile.java is pretty much the meat of our program. We created a method to create a file, and that was open file right here. And we needed a try catch because of Java, and we said, alright, we're gonna look for Chinese.txt, that file we want to write in. If we don't have it already, then create a new one so we can write in it. And that's what xNewFormatter does. So now we have a Chinese.txt file, so we can write text in it. So what did we want to write in it? Well, we just wanted to add a record. We gave myself like an ID number, Bucky Roberts. And if we had to make like a system of like I had to make like a library for school, or they have like credit card numbers or anything where you need an ID number, you'd add a record after record after record, and you call this method a bunch of times. And I just moved that. And then that's how you get like a database on your computer. And then after that you just close your file so you can't mess with it anymore. And that's pretty much it. So thank you guys for watching. I hope you learned a little something, and hopefully I got this so you guys can see it. But oh well, I'm done with the tutorial anyways. So anyways, thank you guys. As I just said, don't forget to check out my giveaways, and don't forget to subscribe. So I'll see you next time. What is going on, guys? Welcome to your 81st Java tutorial, and we are finally going to learn how to read stuff from a file. So as you can already see, I created this Chinese.txt file, and I added 3 more records to it. So the first one is Bucky, the second one is the ID number, and then a name, ID number, name, ID number, name. So it has 4 records, and a record is pretty much a row of data. So now let's go ahead and figure out, alright, we learned how to open a file, we learned how to write this stuff on this file, but we don't know how to access it from a Java program. So that's what I'm going to be teaching you today. And the thing I didn't tell you is before we use scanner, that scanner object, to read from our keyboard using system_in, but we can actually use scanner to read from a file as well. So let's go ahead and first make a private scanner variable. So I'm going to name mine scanner X, and I'm going to move that cursor out of the way. And now let's go ahead and just make a method to open the file first. So public void open file, and let's go ahead and put try to open the file. So we're going to set X, and again here's where we're going to put new scanner. And instead of putting system in here, which would be the keyboard, just put new file and put that Chinese.txt. Did I spell it right? Yep. And now instead of reading from your keyboard, it's actually going to read from this Chinese.txt file right here. So that's a neat little trick that you can do. And if we get any errors, let's just go ahead and catch those errors. Exceptions. E, and now what do we want to do? Let's go ahead and write system out print line, and let's go ahead and print something like could not find file. Looks good enough. So now we have a method to open the file. Easy enough. So what method do we need after this? Well, this tutorial is all about reading files, so let's go ahead and make a method to read the data from that file. So public void, just name it like read file or something like that. And what we want to do, whooping cough. The first thing we want to do is create a while loop, and it goes something like this: while, put your file name, which is X, and then we want to put has next. And what this is going to do, it's a built-in method. It's going to make a while loop, and it's going to keep going until it reaches the end of the file. So it's going to loop through this, and has next pretty much means if you hover over it, another input. So as long as there's something there, it's going to continue. As soon as there's nothing there and it reaches the end of the file, this is going to be false, and this while loop is going to break out. So that's why we can write while x has next. It pretty much means while the file x has something in it. So what we want to do is, you see, each of these records has an ID number, a first name, and a last name. So we're going to want 3 variables to hold those. String A, and let's go ahead and copy that. Actually, we're going to put string A equals x dot next. And what this means is pretty much it's going to do this. Well, let me finish writing all my variables down. I'll tell you guys what it does. String A equals next, and this is going to be B and C. What it's going to do is this. It's going to loop through the very first thing it sees, and it's going to assign 20 equal to A. Then it's going to assign Bucky equal to B and Roberts equal to C. And then what we're going to put after this is we're just going to go ahead and print those out. So system out print, actually printf would be better. So let's go ahead and print just 3 string variables. So %s space %s space %s, and those variables of course are A, B, and C. So now what it's going to do is, after it gets those 3, it's going to print it out, and might want to put a new line there, and then it's going to go, alright, next 60 A, Joe is B, and Doe is C. Now I'm going to print all those out, and it's going to keep printing those out until it gets to the end of the file, which is right here, and then it's going to break out of that while loop. So that's actually the only thing we need in this read file method right there. So now we just need that one last method, and what this is going to do is close the file. So public void close file, just like that. And all we want this to do is close that file X. And now looks like we got everything. Check for errors. And now we can go ahead and start putting it in our main. So let's go ahead and put read file. I didn't name that read file. Yep. R equals new read file. Doesn't take any parameters. And now let's go ahead and put r.open file, r.read file, and r.close file right there. So now what this is going to do is call open file to open it, read the stuff from it, and close it when we're done with it. So now let's go ahead and run this, and we'll see what we got. We got pretty much exactly what is in our text file. 20 Bucky Roberts. It just printed all this out. It stored this in A, B, C, printed it out. Then it got 3 new variables, stored this in A, B, C, printed out, A, B, C, A, B, C. And then it got to the end of the file and it broke out. So again, let me make sure that's in there, and I'll tell you guys how this worked one last time. We made a new scanner variable X because remember, we can use scanner to not only read from our keyboard but also read from files. We then made a method to open the file right here, in which how we did that is we pretty much set this scanner and said we're reading from this file, Chinese.txt, which is right here, and we pretty much set the file equal to X. This error is handling because we programmed it awesomely, and we don't need error handling because we don't have any errors. And now we made a method to read the file, or pretty much read the data in the file. And how we did this is we pretty much set variables equal to each one of these items, or words, or strings, choose your word. And then when we got 3, we printed it out on the line, and then we got a new line, got 3 more, printed it out, 3 more, printed it out, and it does that until it reaches the end of the file using the hasNext function. And last but not least, we close the file because, you know, it's just good programming. So that is that for how to read a file in Java. That's it. I mean, nothing else to say except thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you next time.
What is going on, guys? Welcome to your 80-second Java tutorial, and in this tutorial I'm going to be teaching you guys about exception handling. Now what exception handling is pretty much a way to handle errors. Now an error and an exception are the exact same things. So pretty much, why would we want to handle an error? Well, when the user does something they're not supposed to do, we don't want to get an error, or else the program would just shut down and it'll stop running. We want a way to do something like if they divide by 0 or click something they're not supposed to click, then we don't want the program to shut down. We want to be able to tell them they're wrong and tell them to fix their mistake. So let's go ahead, and I'm going to use scanner. So I'm going to go ahead and import java.util. I'll just import everything because I'm lazy. And now let's just go ahead and let's begin making our system. So scanner, I'm going to name it input equals new scanner, and as parameters type system.in. And now we have an input variable called scanner. So what do we want to do? Well, let's just go ahead and make a little program to divide by two numbers. So system out print line, and go ahead and print just give them a prompt like enter first num. And now for the first num, just put int num1 equals input dot next int, bam. And now whatever they type for the first number is going to be the, let's see, numerator. And now let's go ahead and copy this, duplicate it, and go ahead and set this equal to num2 and give them a new prompt and our second number. And now let's go ahead and make a new sum equal to num1 divided by num2. So now we got a little program if we go ahead and print out the sum. So system out print line, and go ahead and print the sum, and we will run this and test it and make sure it's working. So why does it say num1? Oh, here we go. So now let's go ahead and test this real quick and see if it works. Okay, enter first number 12, enter second number 3, and it gives us an answer of 4. So this works fine. But if we run it again and we go 12, and for a denominator we give it 0, remember you can't divide by 0, it gives you an exception like this. So this pretty much shuts down our whole program. And what if we built a huge program for analyzing the stock market, and it was awesome, and then some idiot tried to divide by 0 and the whole thing just shut down? Well, that wouldn't be good. So we need a way to kind of handle these errors and tell the user, alright, don't do that, but we're not going to shut down the program, we're actually going to fix your problem. Well, in order to handle exceptions, you need to learn something called try and catch. What try and catch means is pretty much just like it is. You try a bit of code, and if you have an error, instead of shutting down your program, you're going to catch that error and do something with it. So here's how you do this. Go ahead and put try, and that's a keyword, and in your curly brackets fill in the code that you want to try. So I'm going to try this. So in my try block right here, I'm going to write the code that I want to try. So I'm going to go ahead and try this. And what this try means and what this code block means, if you have an error anywhere in here, what we want to do is catch this error. So go ahead and write catch after this, and there always needs to be a catch after a try. And there can be something called a finally too, but for now, remember, there always needs to be a catch after a try. And for catch, what do we want to catch? We're going to want to catch all errors. And in order to catch all errors, remember, they're called exceptions. Type exceptione. And why do you need to write this? There's actually different types of errors, like arithmetic error, I think one's called input error or something like that. But if they make a math error or if they click something wrong, there are different types of errors. But if you want to catch all of them, this means if they do anything wrong at all. This is just the broad exception class right here. So let's just go ahead and catch that, and the E is pretty much if you want to print out E or something like that. But if they have any errors, what do we want to do? Let's type system out print line. We'll just type something like you can't do that, and let me fix this. So what this pretty much means is try this. If you have an error, do this. If not, if you try this and it works good, then this is never gonna run at all. So let me show you that. I'm gonna try this and I'm gonna enter 12, 3, bam, 4. This catch right here never runs at all. But if I run this again and I get an error and it says 12, 0, it says you can't do that. In my rest of my program, if I had any more code down here, it would continue to run normally. So what if I actually wanted to build a program so if they entered the wrong thing, then I could pretty much have them do it again over and over again until they enter the right thing. Well, let's go ahead, and this is really simple. Put int x equals 1. So I'm gonna pretty much have a do while loop, and I'm gonna do this, do the pretty much the whole try and catch. So catch this, and I want to catch that too. I want to do the whole try and catch while x that we just made, that's equal to 1, is equal to 1. So I'm going to do that over and over again while this is equal to 1. But the thing is, if it continues to execute successfully, and I'm going to set this equal, the x equals 2. So as soon as it runs successfully, I'm going to set this x equal to 2, and it says, alright, that's the point in time when I stop. So here is a way where we can keep running this program over and over again until we get the right input. So if you had a really dumb user, the program will look something like this. Run sample. Alright, enter first number. 12, 0. Oh, you can't do that. Try again. Okay. Enter first number again. Let me expand this a little bit. 43, 0. Oh, nope, you can't do that. Enter first number again. And it's going to keep trying and trying. So let's go ahead and do this right. So put like 40 and 10. Bam, 4. So that is how we can keep kind of prompting the user to do it correctly. And let me review this one more time. How I did this is I pretty much put, alright, what do I want to do over and over again? Well, I want to try this code, and if this code runs successfully, I'm going to change this variable. But if this code does not run successfully, then I'm going to print out an error, and this never even runs, since you get an error in this and this, and when it tries to divide the sum, this is where the error happens, right here on this line. So this x never gets set equal to 2. So that is why x is still equal to 1, and that is why the do while loop is able to run over and over again. But as soon as this whole thing, okay, good, bam, we finally made it all the way, x equal to 2, and then it looks alright. Is x equal to none? X equal to 1? Nope. Alright, then we can finally exit this bad boy. So that's pretty much your basics of try catch. It pretty much, I mean, it's pretty simple. Try this. If you get an error, do this. I mean, how easy is that? There's actually a little bit more to it, and I'll probably be covering that in the next tutorial. But for now, thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you next time. What is going on, everybody? It is Bucky, and welcome to your 83rd Java tutorial. Now we're actually going to be getting back with GUIs and learning about layouts again after a short break, learning about files and exception handling and stuff like that. So in this tutorial I'm going to be teaching you guys about something called flow layout, and I know we used it before, but this time I really want to show you guys the details of it. So let's go ahead, and I'm going to make a program that has some buttons on the screen, and depending on what button you click depends on what the flow layout is set as. So let's go ahead and make three variables. They're all going to be private, so private J button, and I'll just name this like a left button, and go ahead and copy that, and we're going to name one CB and RB, and this is going to stand for center button and right button. So change this to CB. This is going to be sender button, and this is going to be the right button right there. So now that we have 3 buttons, or at least 3 variables, what we need is a flow layout and a container object. So go ahead and make a private flow layout, and you can name yours anything you want. I'm going to name mine layout because it's easy to remember. And also we need a private container object, and I'm going to name container just like that. Make sure I spelled it right, and it looks good enough. So now we can go ahead and build our constructor, and my class is named layout, so I'm going to name public layout for my method, and this will be my constructor. So again, first thing we do, since we're extending JFrame, we can go ahead and build our title using super, and I'm just going to name the title because I'm that original. And next we need to go ahead and set our layout object that we created right up here with flow layout. We'll set layout equal to new flow layout, and this pretty much means we want our layout to go from when we put things in there like buttons, we want them to be arranged from left to right, kind of like Microsoft Word would do it. So now that we made our new flow layout, and we're actually going to be changing this depending on what button we press, but for now that's good. So now after this we need to set our container object equal to something, so container, and set this equal to get content pane, which pretty much means get the bulk of your window, and this is pretty much just so it knows where to put the stuff. So now let's go ahead and set that layout. So we'll set the layout equal to layout, and this pretty much means layout equals set layout new flow layout. So I mean, simple enough. Now let's go ahead and we can finally do stuff with our buttons. This is pretty much creating a window. Now let's add some stuff in it. So first thing we need is equal left button, set that equal to new J button, and give it something to put in the button. And what goes in your parameters for new J button is the text that's going to appear on the button. So I have a button on the screen now that says left on it. So now let's go ahead and add that to the screen. I just kidding, I didn't have it. Oh, but now I do have it on my screen since I just added it. So now we set it, gave it some content, and we added it to our screen. Next, let's add some functionality to this. So we do this by lb.add action, and look at that, it already made it for us. Add action listener. Now we can either write an object in here, or to make things easier, let's use an anonymous inner class. And you see it said method, well, it didn't give us yet, but it needs to use a new action listener, and this is the class, and this is again anonymous inner class. If I change that, and now if you highlight this, it says it must implement the method action listener action performed. So if it told us to do it, let's just do it. We're easily influenced. So let's just go ahead and put something like, well, let's build our method first before we start thinking about that. Public void action performed, and for our parameter type action event. And now we can go ahead and add some functionality to this. And what do we want to happen whenever we click this left button? Finally, after all of this adding, we finally get to the meat right here, the body of our action perform method. What do we want to happen when we click the button? Well, first of all, we want to change that layout. Since we clicked the left button, let's go ahead and set the alignment, and got a nice little shortcut right there. And what you set it to is flow layout dot left. And what this is going to do is take your entire layout for your window, not just this button, but the entire layout, and change everything to left alignment. So by default it's going to be in the center of the screen, and when you click this it's going to be on the left. So next, the only thing we need to do is put layout that we just changed, put layout container, which is pretty much our container, and go ahead and pass container into this, and this pretty much means rearrange everything depending on what our layout is. So now we did this for the left. Now we can just go ahead and do this 2 more times and make it real easy to copy it. So I'm actually going to add a comment so I don't get confused. Just put left stuff in here, in here. So now let's go ahead and copy everything including that comment and put center stuff in here and change this to center button, add center button to the screen, add an action listener for center button, and change the flow layout to center, which is the default, but again we need to do that. Now we need to do it for the right, so let's put right stuff in here and add the right button to the screen, add an action listener for the right button. Again, the center button and the right button were a lot quicker, so. And not that easy, Haas. And now let's go ahead and run this program. So I'll tell you guys what I did after I run it. I know you guys are probably getting antsy, so let's go ahead and run this baby. And here's what I got. Whoa, forgot to change my text on my button. Quite embarrassing. So this is left stuff, and I put left. Center, again, don't forget when you create your buttons to do that. Embarrassing. So let's go ahead and now, oh my god, look at this program. Here is my window that I just created right here, and as you can see, it doesn't matter if it resizes it or not, it automatically rearranges from left to right, and if you run out of room, it stacks it under each other. So now if you see, if I click left, it changes it to left, right changes it to right, and center changes it to center. And you can see even if we do this, then we get right, left, center. So it doesn't really matter how big your window is, it just knows the flow layout depending on the size, where do I want stuff arranged. So that's pretty much the basics of flow layout. And one more time, let's see how much time I have on my tutorial, about 2 minutes. So let me go ahead and walk you guys through this. We created 3 variables for the buttons, and we actually created a flow layout and container object because we needed them. This is just housekeeping stuff for creating a window in your constructor. And let's just go over one of these. We added pretty much we set the left button variable equal to a button, since, you know, why not? Then we added that button to the screen, and then all of this pretty much is just saying, alright, what do you want to happen when you click this button? And what did we want to happen? We wanted to change the layout, and then we wanted just to reset the container using that. So, and then we just did it for the center and right button. And here's my main, in case you forgot. I included JavaX Swing because that's the window. And, well, you can see all that. You guys already know what this does already, hopefully, if you watch my tutorials. So, that is that for this tutorial. Thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you next time. Oh, by the way, we're going to be creating games soon, so, you know, just thought I'd let you guys know. But anyways, thank you guys for watching, and don't forget to subscribe. What is going on, guys? It's Bucky, and welcome to your 84th Java tutorial. In this tutorial, I'm going to be going over graphics because, well, my ultimate goal of these tutorials is pretty much to make computer games, and we can't make a computer game without sweet graphics. So I'm finally getting into graphics. I decided to abandon flow layout and stuff for now because, you know, this is just much more exciting. If we need any other layouts, we'll go back to them, but for now, I want to start making some sweet graphics on the screen. So let's go ahead and do that. As you can see, I made a new class called Peach because, well, to be quite honest, just because I like peaches, and it needs to extend JPanel because we're going to be using that. So don't forget to have all your imports. Now let's go ahead and get started with making graphics on the screen. Now, in order to make graphics on the screen, we need a method called Paint Component, and this Paint Component method is used to draw graphics on the screen. So let's go ahead and put public void paint component, and for a parameter, it takes an object from the graphics class. So graphics, and I'll just name it G. You can name it whatever variable you want. In this parameter right here, this G, this is going to be used to like set the color, and we manipulate this object depending on what we want to draw. But don't forget that you need this method called Paint Component. This is a built-in method that's inherited, and this is the method used to create all graphics on the screen. So now that we have this method, we can automatically start creating graphics. So let's go ahead and get to it. The first thing we need to do is just one other housekeeping thing. We need to put super paint component and just fill in G right there. And what this is going to do is it's going to call the superclasses. Remember, this is how you call superclasses methods. We want to call the superclasses paint component method. And you just need to do this because there's stuff in the superclass that we need to use just for housekeeping stuff, and pass in your parameter or whatever it was here. And that's the only kind of confusing thing that might not be self-explanatory, so don't forget that. So now let's go ahead and get started. The first thing we want to do is set the background color for our screen. So go ahead and write this, which means this object, set background, and bam, look at that. Now as a parameter for your background color, you just take a color. Now Java already has built-in constants of colors, which is pretty much all your basic colors, but for now, in order to get constant, just put color dot white, because we just want a plain white background. So now we pretty much have on our screen a white background. Not very exciting, but we're going to change that soon. In order to draw objects on the screen, you first need to tell your object or your graphic object what color you want to use to draw with. So let's go ahead and put G set color, and as a parameter, just like set background, it takes a color constant. Now let's go ahead and set our color to color dot blue, and make sure blue is in all caps, and that means constant in Java. So now that we have a color for our graphics object, we can begin drawing a rectangle on our screen. So the first thing I'm going to tell you guys is how to draw a rectangle, and to do that it's fill rect. And what this is going to do is it's going to give you 4 parameters, and this is going to draw a rectangle, a solid rectangle on the screen. So the first parameter it takes is the X parameter and Y. Now this top left corner of your window is 0, 0. And from left to right, this is the X from left to right, and Y is up and down. So let's go ahead and make the coordinates X and Y, and you should know this if you ever took a math class in your life. So at 25, 25, which would be somewhere around here, 25 over and 25 down, that is where we want the top left of the rectangle to be. Now how wide do we want the rectangle to be? Let's just go ahead and put 100 pixels wide by 30 pixels high. So now we got our color and our coordinates of our rectangle right here. So now we just have a blue rectangle chilling on our screen. But I want to tell you guys something else you can do. Next we can go ahead and put set color, and we can set the color again, or pretty much reset the color. And if we want to have a custom color that's not constant, like our own RGB values, and RGB means red, green, and blue, just go ahead and put new color, and as our parameters you type in the RGB value you want. So let's put like 190 comma 81 comma 215. Make sure none of these values go above 255. And this pretty much means, alright, how much red do we want it? 190 red, 81 green, and 215 blue. What color this is, I'm not sure, but I know that it's going to be some weird color. But again, if you want custom colors, then that's how you create it. What I usually do is I go in Photoshop and mess around with the RGB value, but you know, that's not important right now. So now let's go ahead and put this rectangle, or draw a rectangle. So G fill rect, and again we have to fill in all our parameters. So where do we want to? We can't have it start in the same place. So let's have it like start at 25 over, but we'll have this one go 65 down, since this one ends at 55. So again, this is the Y and this is the height. So this will give us 10 pixels of padding, and you can mess around with this on your own. And we'll make it the same width and height for, you know, it's just nice to be constant. Get it? Constant? I just made that up. It's not even a joke really. But anyways, now we have 2 rectangles chilling on the screen. So the last thing I want to show you guys is that not only rectangles, but you can actually draw text on the screen. So let's go ahead and change our color one more time, just because we don't want everything the same color on the screen. It's going to be boring. Set color, and we'll just change this color to like red or something using color.red is our constant. And now let's just go ahead, and this is how you draw strings or text on the screen. G.draw string. How easy is that? Now your iterator is pretty much what do you want the string to say, and this is some text. And make sure you spell text wrong or else it won't work. I'm just kidding. And now where do you want it to appear? Well, let's make an X 25 and let's see, 120. That should be below everything. So now we have a rectangle right here, a rectangle under it, and some text under that. So now I already did this all. I forgot I already did this all, but pretty much make a new frame with your title, set the close operation, don't forget to do that, and then make an object of your class, whatever you named it. I had a peach class, so I named it P. Add it to the frame, set the size of your window, and make sure you set the visible to true so it actually appears. And now if we go ahead and run this program, you see that we created two rectangles that were filled in because we used the method fill rectangle. And again, if I do this, you can see that the coordinates for the first one, the blue one, were 25 over, 25 down. This is 100 wide and 30 pixels tall. And next we set the color again, and we gave it our custom color. Evidently this is some kind of purple color, and this has RGB value of 190, 81, 215, and this is 25 over, 65 down, and that's your top left point right there, 100 wide and 30 tall. And next we just pretty much made some text on our screen, and this text started at 25 over and 120 pixels down. That's where your text started, and then you pretty much just drew a string on the screen using the current color of your G object. So that is pretty much the basics of how do you make simple rectangles. Of course there's more stuff we can do, but for now just sticking with the basics. In the next tutorial I'm going to show you guys how to draw some sweet graphics, and well, they're not going to be that sweet, but they're going to be a little better than this one. So thank you guys for watching. Now don't forget to subscribe, and hopefully I will see you next tutorial. What is going on, guys? Welcome to your 85th Java tutorial, and in this tutorial I'm going to be teaching you guys about something called JColorChooser. Now we're going to be building a program to make a box pop up and allow the user to pick their own colors, and we're going to set this color equal to a variable and just going to be doing some cool stuff with it. But this is a really useful application, and we're going to be using this a lot from now on, so you know it's going to be good. So what we're going to have pretty much on the screen is a button, and when they click the button they're going to be able to choose their color. So let's go ahead and make a private variable for JButton, and now I'll just name it B for button since I'm lazy. And next we need a color variable, so private color, let's just name it color variable named color, and we'll set it equal to the constant white. If I can type, it takes a little bit, but I'll get there eventually. So now we have this color variable set to white, and the last thing we need is pretty much a panel. So private JPanel and panel, we'll just name it that for simplicity. So we have three variables, so let's start doing some stuff with it. The first thing we're going to need to do is build our constructor. So name it public peach or whatever your class is, and it doesn't take any parameters because it's constructor, no parameters. Now let's go ahead and add a title, and I'm going to make the title. I cannot type today, I apologize for that, although I'm not really sorry. Suckers. And now that we have a title, let's go ahead and make our panel. So take that panel variable you just made and set it equal to new JPanel. And again, this doesn't take any parameters either. So now we have a panel on the screen pretty much. Well, we didn't add it yet, but you know, we got it. And next on our panel, we want to set the background, and this is pretty much the background of our window, our panel. So next we need to set a background color for it. So set back, bam, look at that, too easy, didn't have to type anything. Next we want to set the background color, and we're just going to set it equal to color. And what this means is we're going to set the background equal to white, since our color had the value of color.white. So now we pretty much got a panel chilling on our screen. So now let's go ahead and add our button to the screen. So B equals new J button. Doesn't take, oh no, let's go ahead and for the text on our button, let's just put choose a color, because when they click the button they're going to need to choose a color. So now we can add some functionality to this. So B dot add action listener right there, and as our arguments we're just going to add an anonymous inner class, and let's go ahead and just put something like new action. I wish there was a way they didn't have to do this every time. new action listener, and again this action listener must implement the method action performed, and then after this we'll finally get to the good stuff. So public void action performed. We did this enough, hopefully. Action event, and now let's get to the meat of this tutorial finally. So whenever we click this button, what do we want to happen? Well, the first thing we want to do is we want to change that color variable, but instead of changing it to this just like a regular constant or something, we're going to let the user decide what they want to change it to. So we need to put something called jColor chooser, and what this allows is the user to choose their color. So just put show dialog right there, and this dialog takes 3 parameters. The first parameter is the positioning. Just put null, and if you put null, it's going to appear in the center of your screen. The second parameter is when you click this button, a new box is going to pop up. So what do you want the title of that color chooser to be? Just put pick your color. And the last parameter is the initial color that's selected, and you'll see it's hard to explain right now because you can't see the box, but just go ahead and put color right here. So whatever the color was set as before, then that's what we want to have. So let's go ahead and change that, and let me move this over just like that, and now we're good to go. But the one thing we have to watch out for is if they don't choose a color at all. So if we give them the option to choose a bunch of colors and they don't choose anything, we're gonna write alright. If the color that they choose is equal to nothing, and this is gonna happen if they either hit X or cancel, what do we want to do? Well, we just want to take that color and set it equal to whatever color it was before. Or let's just go ahead and set it equal to white. So if they don't choose anything, then they got white. So that's your fault. If you didn't choose anything, you're getting white. And last but not least, we need to change the color of our background. So again, the background is pretty much the panel. And set background just like that. And what do we want to change it to? Whatever color they chose. So now outside our action listener, let's go ahead and add everything to the screen panel. And I know I didn't teach you guys about border layout, but border layout dot center, this means the panel is gonna appear in the center of the screen. Next, let's add our button, and that was named B, in border layout, and let's just make this appear in south. This means the button appears at the bottom of the screen. See, you're getting like 2 tutorials for one in here. Set size of the window, that's 425 by 150, and once I run this program, you guys are going to see what's going on. Set visible, and we're just going to set this to true so it appears. Now let's run this so I can actually explain it a lot better. And again, don't forget to call your object and set default close operation. Set OK. Now we have this program that says the title choose a color. Again, this box is white by default. So now if I go to my code right here, we're going to go ahead and press choose a color. Now this is going to pop up. So we go ahead and choose a color like blue or something and press OK, and now our background has turned blue. And if we click it again, choose a color, change it to yellow, and click OK, now our background goes to yellow. And last but not least, if you choose it and hit something like X or cancel, it's white by default. So let me go ahead and I'll explain this if I can get my code to set up right there. What this pretty much means, you know what all this means. Let's get to the good stuff. We change that color variable according to whatever they wanted to change it to. And again, we use that using jColorChooser show dialog. This is positioning, this is the title of that window right here. And again, pick your color. See that title, pick your color right there? And someone's calling me. I'm not going to answer it. And then this color is when you choose a color, it's what's selected by default. So if you click red, okay, when you do it again, pink's going to be, or red's going to be selected by default. And next, what this pretty much does is whenever you pick a color, it's going to store that value in the return value for color. So if you chose black, now this color is going to be set to the color black. And so that's pretty much what that does, JColorChooser. So then you tested if they hit X or cancel pretty much if they didn't select any color. If they didn't, give them white. But if they did, then we want to set that background equal to the color that they chose, since that color variable will now equal whatever value was returned. And then we pretty much just added to the panel in the center of the screen, right here, we added the button to the bottom. We made the size of our window, we set as visible so you could see it, and then we called it. So that's your real quick tutorial on how to use JColorChooser. In essence, whatever you pick right here is going to be stored in this variable. Bam. That's all you need to know. So thank you guys for watching. We're going to be using this in our couple tutorials from now on, so make sure you learn it. And again, one more time, thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you next time. What's going on, guys? Welcome to your 86th Java tutorial. And in this tutorial, I'm going to be teaching you guys how to draw some more shapes, including like ovals and 3D rectangles. But you know, when I say 3D, wait till you see this. You are not going to be impressed at all. It's pretty pathetic, but you know, they had a thing called 3D rectangle, so I had to figure out how to draw it. So let's go ahead and let's go ahead and get started. Public, and make sure you extend JPanel, not JFrame. I think we might have done that last time, but go ahead and get your public void paint component again, just like that, and for parameter graphics G. And now with our paint component, we can actually paint things on the screen. So let's go ahead and, well, I guess we first need to call the super.paint component, just like that, and G parameter already filled in for us to call the superclass's paint component method. And next, let's go ahead and set background color. Might as well make it white. I'm gonna make mine white. You can make yours whatever you want. Set background, and I'm gonna put color dot white, just like that. Talk like Sean Connery. And now let's go ahead and the first thing I guess I can teach you guys how to do is draw a basic line on the screen. So G dot set color, just like that, and we'll set it to something like blue. Color dot, it's one of my favorite colors, so blue and white, in case you were wondering. And now let's go ahead and put G dot draw line and see what we got for parameters. We got X, Y, and XY. Now you know that in order to draw a line, you need 2 points on the screen. This first line, this X and Y, is going to be your coordinates for the first point. This X and Y is going to be coordinates for your second point, and Java will automatically draw a line from point A to point B. So let's go ahead and put 1025 for the first point, which should be somewhere 10 over 25 down, and for our second point, let's put like 245. So it's going to be a downhill line. Look something like this. And now we got a line on our screen. So what else can we draw? G dot set color. We'll set this one to color dot red because gotta mix it up a little bit. And now let's go ahead and put G dot draw rect. And what this means is, unlike last time when we drew a solid rectangle using fill rect, this draws an empty rectangle, and it takes the same parameters as before. Let's go ahead and put 10 over 55 down. It will be 100 wide, and it will be 30 pixels tall. And now let's go ahead and I'm going to teach you guys how to make ovals now. Let's go ahead and do this first. Set color, what color you want to make it, guys? Green, you said? Alright, color dot green. So we're going to have a green oval. G dot, we'll make this one solid. Fill, oval, and anytime you have fill and draw, they're pretty much interchangeable, depending on personal preference. Now, this fill oval parameters, it takes the exact same parameters as the rectangle, but what it's going to automatically do is round your corners for you. So if we want to make an oval that's the same size as this, let's go ahead and move it down a little bit. So we'll do 10, let's see, 50, 85. So we'll put it in 95. That should give us 10 pixels padding. And we'll make it 100 wide by 30 tall. Now this is going to be the same size as this rectangle right here, but instead of a rectangle, it's going to be rounded off at the corners, aka an oval. So now we got a line, a rectangle, and an oval, not an ovary. I apologize. So the last thing I'm going to teach you guys is something called a 3D rectangle. And what this does is it's pretty much a rectangle that's filled in, but it has a little bevel on one of the sides to give it a slight appearance that it's like pushed out a little bit. So put G dot set color, and what do you want to change the color to? Let's pick a good one. Color dot let's see, that one's kind of good one. Orange. Bam, that's what I'm looking for. Orange. And now let's go ahead and put G dot fill. Bam, 3D rectangle, just like this. Now our parameters, this is a little too easy. Let's put it at 10 over 160 down. That's the positioning. The width can be 100, just like everything else. The height, make this one a little bigger, 50. Now what this raised means, since this is 3D rectangle, it has the option of being raised. Pretty much means, do you want to give it 3D look or not? And of course we do, true, because 3D is awesome. You can also put false to give it not a 3D look, but we want this baby looking 3D. And you guys are about to be disappointed because this doesn't give you nearly as much 3D as you like. But if you go ahead and run this program, I already filled out on parameters. If you guys need to do this, just go ahead and pause. But I did this about 80 times before, so you guys shouldn't have to do that. Go ahead, and as you can see, we drew a line from point A to point B. We also figured out how to draw a rectangle. Let me go ahead and get my good code up here. Our rectangle using draw rectangle instead of fill rectangle. Again, fill rectangle would fill this all in with red. We also filled an oval in using green, using the same parameters as our rectangle. And last but not least, let's scroll down here. We also made this 3D rectangle using fill 3D rect. Now again, I don't even know if you guys can tell on this tutorial because YouTube probably takes some of the quality away, but there's a little line right here along the edge, and it's a little darker than normal, and this is a little lighter than normal on this edge. And what this does is give you guys the 3D effect. Now again, it's not like 3D like you're making a 3D button in 3ds Max or something. It's just a little subtle button like you'd see on a like a very old web page, but you know, it's subtle, but it's there. So that's how you make 3D, and I'm moving my fingers like I'm quoting right now. But that's how you do 3D rectangles, and that's what it means basically. So we learned how to draw a bunch of new stuff on the screen, lines, rectangles, overs, and 3D rectangles. It was awesome. And so, you know, it's been fun, but that's all the time I have for this tutorial. So don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you next time. What is going on, everybody? Welcome to your 87th and the last tutorial in Java programming, whatever I named it. And this is the last tutorial in Java programming because after this I'm going to start a new series, and it's going to be like intermediate Java programming. Because, I mean, we can only continue this beginner series for so long, and there's so much Java to go over. So this 87th video is the last in this series. But after this, there's going to be like 50 more intermediate videos, hopefully, if I ever find the time. And also, after that, it's going to be more expert. I just can't have like 200 videos in a playlist, or else it'll seem kind of weird. So that's why this is going to be the last video in this series. But trust me, we're not done Java yet. And aside from this, my hardcore Java followers are probably like, alright, what happened to Java game development? I thought we were like halfway through that. Well, we're going to be continuing Java game development, but in the meantime we need to go over some basics because we're going to be using that in our game programming. So if you're wondering and worried about, alright, I want to get back to game development, trust me guys, we will build games in Java, but first we need to learn some more basics. So what we're going to be going over in this tutorial is a couple things about strings. And I know we talked about strings before, but we never really talked about all the things that we can do with strings. So let's go ahead and make a couple more strings right now. I'm going to name mine A, B, and C, and I'll set A equal to apples. I said a lot of things equal to apples. I just noticed that. String B, set this equal to Bucky, and string C, set this equal to Bucky, but making sure it's all in caps and spell it right. It's crucial. So now we have string A, B, and C. Alright, nothing we've never seen before. Now we already know a couple cool things that we can do, like system out print line, and we can get like the length of a string using a dot length. And let me just test this to make sure it works. Good. And now there we go. And now we can see 6 right here. So I mean, we already learned a few things, like how we can get the length using calling the length from the string class, but we can also do a couple more things. And the first thing I want to teach you guys how to do is compare strings. Now it's a little different than you guys might think. So let's go ahead and make an if statement. And what you would usually do is if A is equal to this in whatever, whatever comparison you want using two equal signs. And this is how we learned to compare things before. But whenever we compare strings, what we need to do is we need to use the equals method. So here's what you do. Put A, which is apples, if this equals, and then in your equals you go ahead and write what you want it to equal to. If A equals apples, which it does, what do we want to do? Just go ahead and put system out, like, let's go ahead and just copy this. System out print line. It equals apples, and put that in a string. So let's run this and see what we get after we get rid of that. There we go. Run it and see what we get. And it says an error because I didn't use these two things yet, B or C, so that's why we're getting that. It equals apples, bam, so this worked. And if you're wondering, alright, you just told me to do that, but why can't I use the two equal sign? Well, here's the background for you guys who are just so curious. When you use the two equal signs, how do I say this? If two objects are identical, which means they have the same contents, but they're two separate objects themselves, then it's going to be false. And this happens a lot in strings. It wouldn't happen in this case, but it just can cause a lot of confusion. So with the two equal sign, just remember, if you try to compare with two equal signs and you kept getting an error, that means that you have, they could be the same object. They could be both set to apples, but if they aren't the same object, then it's going to be false. So that's why you always need to use the equals method, and that's why they built this method for only strings. If you're wondering, alright, why isn't this in any other class? Because no other class causes problems. What the equals method does is it compares the contents of it, and that's what you always want to do when you're comparing strings. So bam, that's that. And why did I have these two little things right here? Well, we can go ahead and compare these by just doing a little quick copy paste, and we'll put like if B equals C. This is just to demonstrate that that two strings without the same casing is different. So what do we want to write? Bucky's match. Right there. So if string B equals string C, which are both Bucky, let's see what we get. Run. And it says Bucky's match. Nope, we didn't get a Bucky's match. So let's go ahead and now we can see that, alright, this Bucky does not equal this Bucky. But what if we're writing a computer program and we wanted to like type their name or something and we don't care about casing? Then how can we compare two strings with kind of forgetting about casing? Well, what we need to do is this. Put equals, ignore, case. And now let's see what we get. And now look at this. It says Bucky's match. So again, what I'm trying to demonstrate is anytime you want to compare two strings and you don't want to have to worry about case, then what you do is put B dot equals ignore case, and it's going to compare your two strings just like before, but it's going to take the case of it and pretty much forget about it. Say just the contents of Bucky equals Bucky no matter what the casing, bam, as you can clearly see. So that's that for this tutorial. And again, like I said, when you're moving on from this tutorial, don't look for an 88th video. There's not going to be one. You are now ready to go to intermediate Java programming, and I'm going to be building the first tutorial of that next, and it's going to be a continuation of strings. So with that being said, I just want to thank you guys. You finally made it through. You learned so much Java in this series, and I cannot wait to see you next time. So don't forget to subscribe, and